Okay. And we are live. And by we, I mean me, Jeff of World Class Bullshitters, and I'm joined by my guest, RazörFist. And before he introduces himself, I want to. Oh, whoa, what happened here? Sorry, I got an echo, so I apologize for that. But before I introduce RazörFist, I would just like to say he's one of my favorite YouTubers, and I'm beyond excited to have him here. So, RazörFist, say hello to the World Class Bullshitters fans.
I'm stoked to be here as well. I dig your guys' stuff. That's why I said okay, and I believe I am working for scale today. So.
it was a lot of fun because I sent out the tweet and boom, there you were. And I made sure that we worked this out. I think it was like almost 2 weeks ago at this point, because I did not want to miss it on this one. Because I watch your videos. I don't do the gaming ones because I don't do gaming anymore. I have all the systems. I haven't touched a video game in months. I've been so damn busy.
I don't blame you.
Like I told you off air, I will listen to you talk about stuff that I'm not even involved with because I find you very entertaining. So I'm very excited to have you here discussing entertainment. We had a little bit of Star Wars talk off air, and you had a really good piece of insight. So instead of before we get into that, let's tell the listeners who you are real quick.
Yeah, I'm RazörFist. I do rants and raves, and I talk about just about everything. I have several series running concurrently, but the main one is the Rageaholics, just reviews of video games. Also, I review bitchin' cheesy 80s action flicks like Cobra and Commando, and those are all my favorites. And I did a Death Wish month, the real Death Wish, not that last one. But
was it that bad?
No, actually, I heard the new one was pretty good, strangely enough. But yeah, I haven't seen it. Believe it or not, I have not seen it yet. Nothing against it. I will reserve judgment until I actually watch the damn thing. But yeah, I do those kind of movies. I do Metal Mythos, where I review entire bands' discographies. Music Mythos, whatever. And of course, I do rants constantly. So pretty much anything under the yellow sun, I cover. Basically.
Well, you have the best concentrated anger on YouTube. I mean, there is a precision with your videos. I'm just like, wow. Sometimes when I'm writing the scripts for our stuff, I'm thinking, man, I need a little inspiration. I'll just watch yours, and then I get motivated to continually move forward. So thank you for that. And there you go, listeners. There's a little bit of insight to world-class bullshitters. You didn't know
that. Well, it's very flattering. I appreciate it.
Well, a lot of people.
Gonna fuck her?
I mean, you're kind of far away, but I will make the trip. I just drove back from New Orleans, but I'll come back out. I'll come out there, and we'll make something happen. Sorry, Dion. You too.
Right.
I can already tell this is going to go well. So, let's talk about real quick. Let's get this out of the way for the listeners out there, because everybody comes to this channel for one thing. And it's not World Class Bullshitters, the podcast. It's Star Wars.
I thought you were going to say full frontal nudity.
I tried to get away with that, but I don't want to get my channel demonetized and banned and all that shit. It's a weird time right now where I had to get a video where I talked about Toys R Us approved for monetization. So if that is gonna hit censor or set off the alarms, what's a dick gonna do? Probably less, honestly.
Plus, you don't want to give Disney ideas. No one wants to see Admiral purple hair there, full front. No, none of that, please. Gender studies, general, whatever the fuck her name is. Well, by the way, I'm trying not to read too much into the fact that the moment they let a chick drive the spaceship, she immediately crashed into something. That just me.
Somebody actually asked me a question earlier today when I posted that we're going to have this, and somebody said, "Would you rather fuck Admiral Gender Studies or Potato Sack Rose Tico?" And I had to think about it for a minute, because, I mean, if I don't want to choose death, I guess I'd have to go for Gender Studies, because who wants to sleep with a mechanic in a jumpsuit that's always frowning?
I know. Not only that, but scripting the Asian broad to have a midair collision. That was a stroke of subversive fucking genius, Ryan Nobson. Way to go, dude. What's next? You're gonna have Benicio Del Toro. I call him Latino Calrissian. Is Latino Calrissian gonna hop a fence and beat a guy with a bag of oranges? You know what I mean? maybe a Finn tap dance on a watermelon. You know, I'm just spitballing here.
It's funny you bring that up. I said to the guys many a times, like, the Disney Star Wars movies are more racist than you could possibly imagine. Yeah, you'd have Jar Jar Binks and the Nemoidians saying some stupid shit, but the black dude's after the Asian girl and the white girl, and he's always made to look stupid at their service. And I'm like, this is the story of so many guys I know, but it doesn't end, as well as it did for them. And I don't get how anything in Disney Star Wars is empowering.
No, me either. We saw no caring about Naboo. Come on. He might as well have been clicking his tongue. Actually, didn't he click his tongue?
He did click his tongue and spit everywhere.
Just a bit. just one spear throw,
It was the 90s, man. It was a simpler time. We were there. We know.
Yeah, this is true. I saw it almost day one. I don't think I got to see that on day one because, oh my God. Can you remember how packed the theaters were for Phantom Menace?
I'll tell you how packed it was. I had to wait till Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me came out to see the Phantom Menace.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I didn't have
Netflix in theaters. Wow, strange enough. But no, I remember that vividly. It's funny too, because people bash Phantom Menace now again, which today, fuck, Phantom Menace is Citizen Kane next to what's coming out now. But Jesus Christ. But back then, it was actually legitimately seen as a pretty bitchin' film. It seemed like after it came out, kind of took a while for the hangover to set in. You know what I mean? Like it almost wasn't until like the next movie came out that you really had full-blown negativity about Phantom Menace. I think Spoonie wrote an article on his website about this a long time ago. I wish I knew what it was called. I would direct you all to it. But it was actually a really good article about how, man, back in the day, Phantom Menace was seen as pretty boss. Not boss nass. But it's seen as pretty boss. And then it was like the next movie came out and it was like, oh, that's a piece of shit. Never mind.
All I remember, the first piece of criticism I remember hearing was from Kevin Smith in the Clerks cartoon. The fourth episode when they're grilling George Lucas on the stand. He's like, is it true you wrote the Phantom Menace in a weekend? And then the other lawyer goes, objection. The pod race was pretty cool. That's the first time I remember hearing a joke at that movie's expense. And
yeah, they should have offered him a directing gig on it. Then he'd fucking suck its ass.
Oh, Kevin Smith being called a shill on this channel is very well documented. People like to attribute his heart attack to me. I have comments of that from the Mundane Matt channel. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I made Kevin Smith eat in 1994. And when I was 5 years old, I don't think me in Ohio made Kevin Smith get fat in New Jersey. But hey, I'll take the blame. Fuck you.
I don't remember filling his skull bong personally, but you go right on ahead. The guy's been inhaling pot smoke and chowing down on mac and cheese for the last 3 decades. I'm not gonna feel too bad about that one.
It's funny because if you would have met me a couple of years, I will go 10 years back, right before I hit 20, I thought Kevin Smith was awesome. Like I always thought he was so prolific and had so much to say. And the older I get, I realize how full of shit he was and how ill-equipped he was to do anything post Clerks. Like Mallrats, I like the movie, but it is not as good as I remember.
Oh, you haven't seen that masterpiece, Tusk? No?
I fucking hated that movie. And I met, I think it was his name, Robert Kurtzman, the guy who did the effects at a comic convention. And they had the walrus suit there. Oh. And I said, the craftsmanship on this is great, but fuck that movie. And he just laughed and I walked away. That was because I've kind of been on it. I've kind of had a hard on for Kevin Smith after, well, not even his fault. I went to the store, Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash from Comic Book Men. And I met the guys from the show. They actually worked there, and they were dicks. I didn't want anything special. I was buying stuff. I just asked them like 2 or 3 questions, and they were like, they couldn't be bothered. And I just was like, fuck it. I won't watch your show. I won't deal with you. And ever since then, I've kind of felt towards Kevin Smith. And then, like you said, Tusk came out, so it was justified.
Yeah, didn't they get shit canned anyway?
Dude, AMC's stupid. The Walking Dead's still on TV, so you never know what could happen with AMC.
Yeah, that's true. Like fucking what's that awful Western they have? That one that is on like perennially. Hell on Wheels, which I started out watching and I actually enjoyed the show. But it's like, hey, we'll air season 1 and then we'll air season 2. And then it's like, oh, and then maybe 2 years down the line, we'll get to a season 3. And then, a year and a half, maybe we'll give you a season 4. Like, what? How does AMC work? Like, are they just up there on a mountaintop with like fucking amyl nitrate tabs? Are they consulting the burning bush? Like, how do they decide to schedule their shows?
It's their consult. Are you a Twilight Zone fan?
A little bit.
There's an episode called The Old Man in the Cave, where they keep everything they do, they have to consult the old man in the cave, and then it turns out the old man in the cave is just a computer. I feel like they're just pulling out of their ass, and all they're doing is relying on their Walking Dead money, and they're just, they're pretty carefree.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking it up right now, by the way. AMC's Comic Book Men started in February of 2012, and it is still running on AMC. They have 94 episodes. Ugh.
Really? I used to work in a comic store. I used to work in a comic store, and I would still not want to be around comic book employees that much.
Dude, I wanted to work in a comic book store. I actually wanted to be a comic book artist for years. I trained, and I started getting paid work. And then I just realized I don't like being involved with that community. Not like everybody, but like you said, you go to the store, you meet some of the weirdest people, and then, with the way comics are nowadays, why would I want to spend my life involved in that?
Yeah, I had some stuff. I actually did the same thing. I was a comic artist for a little while. I got some stuff published in anthology magazines and stuff. Just, I was just starting and figuring out page rate and all those fun things you have to learn when you're first starting. And then I decided, no, not so much. Well, I still do the occasional thing, but only for my own enjoyment. But yeah.
Yeah, I was getting $50 a page. Woohoo! I was like, cool, man. I got like $1,000 an issue. I can knock this out in so many weeks. And
fun fact, I knew before they announced CB Cebulski, I knew he was going to be the guy to take over Marvel.
Ooh!
Because I remember I went down to New York Comic Con in 2007. And the comic store I worked at, it wasn't some shit box, it wasn't just some hole in the wall kind of, your standard comic shop. It was a full blown like franchise. I think it was the biggest franchise in the country at that point. Big, and it was based out of Phoenix, huge. We had like 4 or 5 stores, and we were expanding. And so when we went to these conventions, like we had the ear of Joe Quesada and Dan DiDio, and like the guy who ran the company was good friends, first name basis with all those guys. So daily phone conversations with them. So we got to sit down with them when we went down there. So the deal was, because the franchise was so big, we would take like a van around and we would just hawk our wares at every major convention around the country. So we sit down for dinner with Joe Quesada, and it was pretty cool. He was really, really nice. Joe Quesada is actually a really cool guy. His politics are an absolute dumpster fire, but he's a nice guy. And he could not. We called it a CB Saboner. He could not put his throbbing CB Cebulski erection away. The whole time he was going to put an eye out. Low-flying traffic helicopters were being knocked from orbit. This dude wanted to tongue CB Cebulski's asshole, and the moment I heard Cebulski was in the running for editor-in-chief, I'm like, he's got it. That's it. Done. Everyone might as well go home. I knew it. And nobody would believe me, too. They were all like, oh, it's going to be this guy. It's going to be that guy. I'm like, no, you watch. It's going to be Cebulski. And sure enough.
I want to get back into the books to see if he's made a change yet, but it's probably too early for that because, they're 3 months out from production to like printing. So
I'm under no illusions. Yeah, I'm under no illusions he's some flag-waving nationalist or something. But it does look like he has stepped back from the precipice of Tumblrina twattery of late. So
I just don't see how they think there's money in that. Like those people, I know a lot of those people, especially from college days. Those people don't have money for anything. They can barely get by. I mean, their ideals don't pay the bills.
No, exactly. And it's funny when you have an anti-corporate methodology, it doesn't really work in business. Who would have thought? Who would have thought being a Fortune 500 company and pissing on your customers wouldn't work out well? Of course, it works for Sony, so I guess I can't blame them. But
The best thing that ever happened to Sony was the email leak, because we got to see what a dumpster fire the production of Ghostbusters was.
Oh man.
And that is its legacy. Not the film, the dumpster fire that was Amy Pascal and Tom Rothman and what's his face? Paul Feig.
Yeah, and what was this SNL chick? The silverback with the proton pack. What's
Leslie Jones? Ugh. The one celebrity that had nude leaks come out that you didn't want to see.
Oh God, yeah. I'm like, oh, she's in the shower getting fucked. I'm like, yeah. What'd they call it? Gorillas in the mist? What is? That's what if I'm running Vivid, that's what I'm releasing it as. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't release it at all. I know there's money in everything, but I would have to, exercise good taste in that one.
Exactly.
The guy on the Dion on the show is like, well, she does anal, so I'm cool with her. I'm like, ew, but what in her face?
What are you? What are you? Gonna have to double up on the paper bags on that one, I'm afraid.
Just put a whole Rubbermaid container over her head,
Yeah, just get a paper bag for her body, please. Just get a motorcycle tarp. Something.
It's like in what is it, the first Naked Gun, where they're like, you have protection. They put on this giant body-sized condom.
Yes,
get her one of those.
Those movies are classic. I don't care what anyone says. Oh, I love all three of them.
I remember as a kid, I would see the commercials and I'd want to see them so bad, and I never got to. And then I saw them as a teenager, didn't like them. Then I recently rewatched them, and I really enjoyed that first one.
Oh, the first one is so. I don't think there's any movie I can just watch. Maybe Spaceballs, although Spaceballs is so quotable now, it's almost like you can't laugh at it. But like Naked Gun, I can't come up for air at times. Like it's so fucking hilarious. I love it. That movie is great. I wish they still made comedies like that. The kind with actual jokes instead of just spit takes and fucking reaction shots and fucking hipster mandolin playing in the background. What is with all the shoegazing in comedies now? Like, hipsters totally commodified comedy.
I think what it really is, if we're going to be honest for a second, I think a lot of people saw how stuff like Anchorman was made, and they just replicate. They don't worry about the script, and they don't worry about, having someone like a Will Ferrell that actually knows what he's doing, who can perform. Yes. They just get, what's her, like a Zoe Deschanel. I don't even think she's in a comedy. She's not funny. Yeah. They just get, like Aubrey Plaza. I don't think Aubrey Plaza is funny.
Right. Anyone with those Betty Page bangs, they're, automatically signed for the ingenue role. They definitely follow a formula.
They do, and I look at those movies, like I'll see the trailer and I'll go, nope, and I'll just pass it up, and I'll just go back and watch old stuff. I don't mean to sound like that guy, but if I'm going to go and have a movie marathon at my house, most movies came out, honestly, before I was born, and then a good chunk of the newer ones are going to be, like, I really enjoy Tropic Thunder. I think there's a lot to be said about Tropic Thunder.
I haven't seen it.
I think you'd enjoy it. Based on the stuff you talk about in your videos and our discussion right now, I think it's still on Netflix. I really want you to go watch it, because the reason I laughed is I thought of the scene where Matthew McConaughey plays Ben Stiller's agent, and he was talking about how Ben Stiller tried to adopt kids, and he goes, "Well, at least you get to choose yours," and it shows a picture of Matthew McConaughey's son, and he has like Down syndrome, and the movie pulls no punches, and it was just so. I was like, "Oh my god!" Because this was 2008, so it was right before we had like SJW Hollywood the way it is now.
Yeah. You couldn't gosh, what happened in 2008 to change all that? I wonder.
I don't know. All joking aside, I was at my gym today and I found an old Reader's Digest from 2008. It's like the presidential election 2008. Who will win? This and that. What could change for the country? I was really tempted to look through it, but I was too sweaty and didn't give a shit.
You think they devoted 7 chapters to the absolute dog shit that the last several years have been? You think they predicted it all? Little Oracle of Delphi situation there.
It really though.
Maybe they predicted the Weinstein stuff.
They probably already knew it back then. They're just keeping it hush hush.
Yeah, here's your headline from the future: 2018, the year we separated the men from the boys with a crowbar.
Oh my god. No, but the only thing that's nice about the way the politics and entertainment are nowadays is that it gives us shit like this. There would be no world-class bullshitters without the stupidity of Hollywood politics. There would be less for you to discuss on certain topics. There would be there's another channel that does a lot of this stuff. I don't know. We'll get to him later. But my point is, they give us Pornhub.
Right.
We actually had a Pornhub channel for a while. We wouldn't even put porn on it. We would just put like stuff that was too risky for YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, it was because YouTube. We did a top 5 favorite movie nude scenes. Like, God, we've been around for almost 3 years. This October, we had 3 years, and we just tried it as a joke. And obviously, it didn't work, and it got taken down because it was lewd. There was no nudity in the video. We just talked about like, hey, a room in Rome or whatever. Blue is the warmest color. And that triggered them, so they took it off. And we made a Pornhub channel, and it's on Pornhub, so people can go out there and find the World Class Bullshitters Pornhub channel.
Yeah, I've got a few videos that are like that too. Yeah, just a few videos that were restricted, usually for BS copyright reasons. Would you believe one of my first age restricted videos was for Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo? That's how many butt sex jokes I can cram into even a video about Mario. Good times.
For as big of a Mario fan as I am, I've only played that game maybe once or twice.
Oh man, I played that game back to front. Oh my God. I went over that was back in the days when you would still, rent games from Blockbuster or whatever the fuck. And I remember how mad I was when I went to Blockbuster one day and I realized someone had stolen the copy, so I wouldn't be able to rent it anymore. I was so pissed. And then later on I got my own copy. But yeah, fucking
I remember Blockbuster, and I remember renting Ocarina of Time and thinking to myself, "Oh, I'm going to beat this game in a weekend." And then I went to, I didn't because I sucked at it. Went to go get it again. Somebody had deleted my profile on it, and I was like pissed. So I convinced my mom to go buy me a copy. And I think that was the last time I ever rented a Zelda game.
Was that not like the absolute apex of '90s first world problems? When you would go to Blockbuster and rent the same copy of the game, and some prick had overwritten all the saves with his own. Oh.
And it was bullshit too. Like there were certain games. It's like Turok the Dinosaur Hunter is not a good example. Like GoldenEye, no one would ever delete GoldenEye or Super Mario because you could play, but everyone had to fuck around with Zelda. And I was always so angry. It's like, I remember as a kid too. I accidentally deleted one of my Zelda files, and it just was like life changing in a bad way.
You started hanging out around train tracks and shooting up under the overpass.
I was a tall kid. They let me into the dive bars. I'd tell people my life story.
Yes.
Like that scene in Weird Science.
Started playing Five Finger Fillet with hobos.
Yeah, luckily though, I got my life back on track when I got my own copy of Ocarina of Time. That's my fucking cautionary tale to all the listeners out there. Your own Zelda copies.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you play the newest Zelda?
No, I haven't played it yet. No, because I don't have a Switch, so I've not played it yet.
I bought it to try to do an unboxing for the channel back when I didn't know what World Class Bullshitters was supposed to be. And I beat the game, and I've never really used the system since because it's kind of just, I don't know, an extra toy that sits in the office all day. I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a cool system. It's just clearly not marketed to people like me. I'm more into sim games and stealth games and shit like that. Slightly.
I did watch your was it Splinter Cell series?
Yeah,
I watched that because I had Splinter Cell on the Xbox 360. The first one was it Rogue Agent?
Double Agent.
Double Agent. That's what it is.
Yeah,
and I sucked so hard at that game that I
really.
It was weird. I got an Xbox 360 for my 18th birthday, and I bought 4 games with it. Saints Row, Splinter Cell, something else in this game. It was like a mech game. And I was like, oh man, Splinter Cell. I played the first one. It was so great. I'm going to get into this one. And then I just sucked, and I didn't know what I was doing. And that's the only time I've ever given up on a game that early. I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but fuck it. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I'll go play Saints Row and, kill people.
Yeah, that works. Was the mech game, what was it, Chrome Hounds?
That was it.
Yeah, that game was pretty cool when it first came out, and then unfortunately, it was one of those it was one of the first examples of having to have an internet connection with a game. It's basically useless without one. And then what do? They shut down the servers within like 2 years or something.
I just remember I used to play like Mech Warrior back on the PS1.
Oh, yes.
2. and that was fun. And then I thought, oh, I'm gonna relive those memories. I can't even remember the fucking menu music from MechWarrior 2. It was incredible. And then you get Chrome Hounds, and I liked it, but I'm one of those people, if I buy like 5 video games at once, it's like Netflix. When you have like 20,000 movies to choose from, it's kind of hard to sit through one that you're not really thoroughly enjoying every moment, even if, you know. So that's what happened with me. I bought four or five video games in a short period of time, and I just kept switching, and that one just kind of fell through the cracks.
Yeah. I know what that's like. I tried to watch the new Star Wars. Yeah, I understand.
See, luckily, you're not known as a Star Wars channel. I am. And
yeah. Well, I've done a few. Some of my more popular videos are Star Wars related, but yeah, surprisingly, it's weird too because like my level of Star Wars fanboyism has probably been massively understated. You know, like when I was 10, I painted glow in the dark Star Wars mural on my wall.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, like I was all in. I got that One Last Time trilogy in the 90s. And
95, remastered for THX.
I never looked back after that. Like, Return of the Jedi was my favorite movie at that point and fucking everything. So it was nice to see it remade badly with the Last Jedi. That was nice.
Dude, A New Hope's
my favorite. Has there ever been a more pointless antagonist in history than Darth Sidious? Whatever the fuck his name is, the guy with the vagina on his forehead.
Oh, Snoke?
That guy. You mean the guy we were all assured was going to pay off in a big way? And hey, he might seem dumb in The Force Awakens, whatever, but no, he'll pay off. It'll be important. He totally won't just die in a pointless scene in a really bad movie, driving absolutely nothing home whatsoever. Yeah.
He was I just remember seeing The Force Awakens, and when it was revealed that he was a hologram, people were like, "Oh my god!" Because remember how they portrayed it like he was this giant guy, and then somebody acted like, and then the crowd I was with was stupid. Like people cried and clapped during multiple, like when the Millennium Falcon appeared, people were like, "Yay!" And there was a dude with a tear down his eye next to me. What? It was stupid. Yeah.
Were you in a head trauma ward? Are you kidding me?
I was in the greater Cincinnati area, and for some reason, that local AMC theater.
Wait, you're in the Natty?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. It's one of my favorite cities.
Please tell me why, because every time I have to come back, I'm like, I hate living here.
I love Cincinnati. I went down there in the late 90s. I stayed, it was still called, what is it called now? I don't even remember what it's called now. They changed the name, but it was then called the Regal Hotel. And over at the convention center and whatnot. And I loved it. Am I crazy? Or there's like a shopping mall that's undergroundish, right outside the hotel there. Did I hallucinate this? I remember this vividly. Like being able to.
It was there. I think it was called the Tower Place Mall, but it's gone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Like there was a really bitchin' mall. It was like multiple levels, but it was like underground.
Yep.
It was crazy. It was like Mole People Mall. Yeah, what, did they fill it in or something? Because that's do you ever watch these like walking around abandoned malls videos on YouTube? Like if you start, you will not stop for hours. It is. So
I watched that guy religiously, and he came to town and did one because we have a mall called the Forest Fair Mall. It has one store in it, and it's a giant. Like I know you live in a more populated area than I do. Imagine like all your malls combined into like one mega mall. Mm-hmm. That's what this place is, and it's empty except for one fucking store, and it stays open somehow. And you can go walk the halls of the mall. They have signs, don't film here, don't do this. But it's weird. It's actually scary to be there.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. We have a few like that too. But no, like I just imagine if they didn't fill in that underground mall, imagine how fucking creepy that one would be to walk through. Because you're literally entombed underground. Like, Jesus Christ, that'd be the ultimate urban exploration. Am I wrong? Somebody, whoever steals that idea, I'm calling royalties now.
Well, this city is now full of local microbreweries and.
Oh God, no, dude, it was already happening when I was there. Late 90s. I remember how many fucking coffee and bagel places there were. Oh Christ, and a cocksock. There were at least 3 bagels places on one street. Jesus, absolute insanity.
It's a weird city. I guess I don't like the end of town I live on. I don't even live in a bad end of town. I guess I just, maybe the grass isn't truly greener on the other side. But there's just something about these people here. And when it comes to Star Wars, you get the weirdest of the weird. Like, we talked about comic book stores. I went to work free comic book day 2016. I almost got into a physical fight with a guy over the Force Awakens.
Really?
Because I actually got into a fucking verbal argument at The Last Jedi because when we left, when we were watching the credits roll, I said that movie sucked. And then I said the worst fucking part was the PETA message at the end of in the middle of the movie, like animal rights activism in Star Wars. What the fuck? And then some douchebag behind me goes, I like animal activism, fucking blah blah. I said, if you got a problem, say it to my fucking face. And he just is like, are you really going to try to start a fight at Star Wars? Why can't you let people enjoy what they want to enjoy? I said, I didn't say shit to you until you started saying shit to me, and it almost escalated. And then I can't believe I got almost into a fight over Star Wars. But at the comic book shop a couple years back, this guy tried to antagonize me because I thought The Force Awakens was regurgitated garbage.
I had a similar situation back when I worked in a comic store, but please continue.
Oh no, tell me yours. All I was gonna say is it got out of hand, and now I see this guy in public, and he fucks with me. And one day, I mean, I'm not gonna throw away the channel and punch this guy in the face, but one of these days, I might just knock him into traffic or something. So,
yes. No, I had a situation where I'm working. So, like I said, it's a big chain. So occasionally they would send you to different parts of town to work at a different store. Because Phoenix is fucking huge. You can't drive across it in 2 hours. It's gigantic. So it's like I'm sitting there and this guy in a wheel. This is what makes it hilarious. It's a guy in a wheelchair. So handicap guy, and he's a dick. He's just the biggest dick you could ever imagine. I can't imagine I understand you were fucked by God, but Jesus. So he's standing there. No, man, he got really upset. So I'm just kind of making idle conversation while I'm checking out. And, he's buying Star Wars comics. And, of course, this was back when Dark Horse made the comics, so they were actually readable. and we're flipping through, and I'm making idle conversation. Hey, did you play the new Knights of the Old Republic? He's like, oh, yeah, because KOTOR 2 had come out a couple years before that. And it's Knights of the Old Republic 2, just a masterpiece. It's I've never been more philosophically moved by a game. And I'm first off, what the fuck, dude? And second off, I have problems with the developer who made KOTOR 2 specifically, Obsidian, because they have this habit of not finishing their games. And they'll always have an excuse, it's the publisher, it's this, there was a biplane crashed through the roof. There's always an excuse, you know what I mean? Roving monkey gangs. So they're they constantly, they'll make a great game, the bare bones of a great game, and then they just won't finish it. But KOTOR 2 is one of the worst examples of that because it doesn't have an ending. And it's an RPG. It's not you're just playing a first-person shooter and then it kind of drops it and you're whatever, at least I got to shoot shit. No, with an RPG, you're expecting for the story to actually end. You're expecting to find out what happened to everyone. Well, here's what happened. So in KOTOR, have you played KOTOR 2?
I have not. I played the first one short. Not very long. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so there's this naggy bitch. There's this naggy old broad. She's this crone. She's Space Betty White. Not even Space Betty White. She's way more off-putting. She's Joy Behar. Space Joy Behar. She refuses to shut the fuck up. So she's supposedly a seer, and, Kreia is her name. And she's rambling, and every time you hit a major plot point, it's time to talk to Kreia and have her talk your ear off. And it gets really annoying after a while. And she's morally ambiguous. It gradually becomes obvious that she's the antagonist in the game and so forth. And so you reach the end of the game and you have to fight Darth Kreia. I'm not spoiling anything. This game is fucking old. You're fighting Darth Kreia and you beat her and whatever, and you're expecting, oh my god, here comes the climax. This is going to be amazing, finding out what happens to everyone. What do? Oh, sorry, I owe you one ending. You're going to sit here and talk to her. The bitch who wouldn't shut up tells you the ending. You don't get to see the ending. She tells you the ending. So KOTOR 2, while it is fun to play, I don't think I've ever had more of a blue balls experience in video games than the ending to KOTOR 2. So I'm just talking about, so I vastly prefer KOTOR 1 because at least it's fucking finished. And that one's made by BioWare back when they were worth a shit. So this guy, I'm like, yeah, KOTOR 1 is fantastic. And he's like, no, KOTOR 2 is way better. And we, honest to God, get in a shouting match in the middle of the store over KOTOR 2. This guy motherfucks me over Knights of the Old Republic too. This wheelchair guy is like flipping me off. It's to the point where, so this is like at a store that I don't normally work at, thank God. So later on, like a week later, I'm hanging out at my normal store, and we get a call. And the call is from one of the employees at the store I had been working at that day. And he's like, hey, this guy just wanted to apologize for motherfucking you over a shitty, overrated game.
Yeah. At least your guy apologized. One day, I took my mom to the store and I fell asleep. I was just laying in my car waiting there for her because I don't like fucking discount chain stores. She wanted to look for some cheap shit. The fucking guy saw me and started honking his horn to wake me up and then gave me the finger. So, like, wow. This guy is a piece of shit. I do not like this guy. Oh. I have a fucking Newman. So
you do have a Newman.
And the weird thing is, I'm not the kind of guy people usually fuck with because I'm like a really big dude. People just don't say shit to me. And this guy just keeps going. Like one day he's going to get it right in the fucking mouth.
No, I remember my experience. You mentioned the thing at the theater with walking out and getting in an argument over fucking Star Wars. I had the same thing with the shitty Abrams Star Trek movie, which I don't always, look, some of us, you're in the theater experience is inherently entertaining because it's more engaging. Just the theater environment is more engaging, you know what I mean, than just sitting at home watching a fucking Blu-ray with your dick in your hand, you know what I mean? Like, it's much more engaging. So sometimes it can take a while for you to process how truly shit what you just watched was, right? Yep. That was not the case with Star Trek 2009. I walked out of that theater fucking hating it. And I was ranting about how much it sucked in the fucking lobby area, right? Like, I'm literally walking out to my car just ranting off the top of my head about fucking how bad that movie was. Fucking Sulu in a CGI, like fucking CGI, what was he doing? Like rappelling with a fucking samurai sword? Like,
yeah.
That was a thing that happened in a Star Trek movie. And I'm like, I can't process what I just watched, but you could not tell people it was shit. Like, it was not allowed. It's still kind of not allowed. There are a lot of people who still say that movie was amazing.
Well, it's like talking about The Force Awakens. Oh, it was amazing too. No, it fucking wasn't. Did you not watch the same movie 40 years ago when it was called Star Wars? Oh, it's different. It's different.
Yeah.
I can honestly school somebody for 2 hours. We can go by a scene-by-scene comparison. The Last Jedi is just as fucking bad. You brought up Return of the Jedi and how your favorite movie was remade poorly. They even fucked up Empire Strikes Back trying to remake that.
Yeah. No, that movie, The Last Jedi, is basically just Empire Strikes Back and Last Jedi smashed together, but only the shitty parts and only done terribly.
That's all they know how to do at Disney. That's all they know how to do.
No, absolutely. And whenever you tell people that, well, some people, it's like, oh, dude, no, you're wrong. The new Star Wars is absolutely insane. Don't you love that when they say it's insane? It's absolutely insane. It's like, yeah, I agree. It is insane because the definition of insanity is doing the same shit over and over again. And that's what it is. Jesus Christ.
It's funny, though. The more time goes by, the less people I meet that try to defend Disney Star Wars person. You get your people online that you can't tell if they're trolling or if they're just fucking with you because, that's their lot in life. That's all they know. But, like, when I go to my local comic book store and we discuss Star Wars, now it's like everyone, like, gets together and they're like, oh, yeah, it sucks for these reasons. And no one goes, I liked that. Nah, it's just a big shit fest.
Well, and you knew that was going to happen when they went annual. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's... It as soon as you heard, okay, Star Wars movie every year, it was like, oh man, that's gonna wear out its welcome so fucking fast. Like, you can already feel the superhero movies, even though they're still making money and the occasional one will, it'll be hailed as a fucking cancer cure.
Like Black Panther, just say it. You can say it here. Believe me, I've lost a lot of subscribers saying I think it's a fine movie for what it is, but it doesn't save the world.
I wasn't gonna say it, but sure. No, exactly. And fucking people were mad when it lost the perfect rating. It's a superhero movie. What the fuck?
And it wasn't even that goddamn perfect.
I grew up on superheroes. I drew comics. You know what I mean?
Here,
and I'm telling you, it's just a superhero movie. Like, stop it.
And it falls apart towards the end, especially once Eric B. Jordan takes over Wakanda. The whole plot just kind of rolls over on itself, and then it just ends because of reasons. I hate the ending of that movie.
True. No, this is absolutely true.
But no one wants to say that. And you brought up the superhero movies. Like you said, you're a fan, I'm a fan. We both wanted to draw them professionally. I am ready for it to end with Avengers Infinity War, whatever part 2 is going to be. Like, if Avengers 3 and 4 are one big story that go together like they originally planned, I'm ready for it to end then. I can't do Captain Marvel. I'm not going to see that fucking movie. Shazam, I know that's a DC film, but still, that sounds stupid. I'm done. They did it right for the last 10 years. It was fine. Good. Thank you. I want a break. Batman got a break.
It feels like you're already seeing a bit of a pivot into. I don't think comic book movies are necessarily going to go away, but I do think they're going to have to evolve, or else they're already kind of falling off. You're seeing the occasional comic book movie that's like, oh, it made its money back and a little more. You know what I mean? Like, you're already seeing that start to happen. Look, absolutely everything is cyclical. Even if every single comic movie that Marvel had ever done was goddamn exceptional, eventually people would get tired of it, right?
Yeah.
There's film noir was amazing, but it had like a 10 to 15 year run. Westerns were amazing, but they had like a 10 to 15 year run. That's how it fucking works. And at this point, I mean, don't look now, but even the current wave of superhero movies, we're about 10 years in, right? Because what was the first one technically, like Iron Man?
Yep, that was May of 2008.
Yeah, so we're about due. It's about, and I think Justice League bombing, while it was a pretty bad movie, I think it actually has a little more to do with the fact that we're 10 years in here. I think we're about due for the audiences to just be kind of sick of this shit.
I think Justice League also failed. The same reason Solo is going to be hurt. People want it to fail. Constantly, people just talked about how much it's going to suck, how much it doesn't need to be made, blah, blah, blah. And I think that Justice League is not a great movie. I won't even say it's a very good movie, but it's better than I thought it would be, and I can tolerate it more than I can tolerate like Thor Ragnarok. Because Thor Ragnarok had moments of greatness, and then it was marred by like, hey, let's stop to tell a joke.
What I'm blown away by constantly, and I'll say this in defense of Marvel, at least there's some kinetic kind of energy to the Marvel flicks. With the bad DC ones, it's like just ponder. How do you take a guy in tights punching people in the face and make it boring? Like, how does that?
They have multiple times.
I know. How does it like, who's your writer? Conrad Murray? Like, how are you doing this? How are you even accomplishing it? It's, Superman, Batman being the ultimate example of this, where it's fucking a 3-hour long superhero movie. And I say the same thing about Logan. I'm equal opportunity on this. While I do think Logan actually works because it was written pretty well and acted pretty well, and it actually works from beginning to end as a movie. It's way too fucking long. It's a superhero movie. Cut these fucking things down. You know what I mean? People are talking about, if we could fix Batman v Superman, or we could fix Justice League if we just got that Zack Snyder cut. It's like, great, just what we need, more shit.
Well, it's like when you try to watch the Ultimate Edition of Watchmen. I have really many, Watchmen's fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I own it. Put it like that. If I own it, I gotta want to watch it multiple times. But then there's that, the 5-hour edition with the Tale of the Black Freighter and all that shit wedged in. I can't do a 5-hour movie. Especially Watchmen. As much as even like a Spider-Man movie, if they did like an alternate cut of number 2, well, they did. Sorry. If they could fix 3 with extra scenes, I still don't think I could sit through it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not much of a Watchmen fan to begin with, and I think Alan Moore's kind of a hack. But
Thank you. I don't have to kiss that movie's ass finally, or the book.
that movie, you remember what happened with that? WB are so fucking sketchy with their, not that Marvel aren't, not that Disney aren't, and we'll get to the whole Disney stuff with fucking Walt Disney and all that shit, but like WB, do you remember when Watchmen came out, the whole controversy where they were basically, and this was right around the time that Rotten Tomatoes was partially purchased by Warner Brothers, if I remember correctly. I think they're still like a minority shareholder, but Watchmen came out, and for like 24 hours or maybe for almost a week, is before it came out, 100%. It like set records, and there started to be headlines about it. Like, holy shit, Watchmen is like the greatest fucking comic movie ever. I know, I can barely get it out. But Watchmen, greatest thing ever made. It's a monument to the cinematic medium. And then, of course, the actual reviews started rolling in, and it went down by like 10% on the hour and whatever. And it turned out that WB, it was one of the first examples of Warner Brothers having a bunch of bots literally propping up the movie score and shit. Warner Brothers got, it was kind of a mini controversy or whatever back in, was that 2009 when that came out?
Yep, it came out on 3/6/9. I remember that date for some reason.
Yeah, and I remember that very vividly. And the same shit happened with Justice League. Before that movie came out, they had a shitload of Twitter bots, and they'd all have the same fucking header, the same like image for their header, and all they'd be just transparently fucking fake because all their tweets would be about Justice League or about DC movies and shit. And I actually had like this long Twitter thread where I was just exposing them one by one. It was WB does some sketchy shit with their marketing, actually, with their movies.
Are you sure those were bots and it wasn't just Collider? Because same thing to me.
This is possible.
I fucking hate those people. Sorry, I'm not trying to derail your train right now. I thought about everybody. The thing is, I almost said Campia. He's the guy, but they all go on Twitter. Oh, I just saw an early screening. Best movie yet. I heard that for Batman versus Superman. I heard that for Suicide Squad. Fuck those movies.
Yeah,
I don't trust anybody from those companies anymore. Hell, I would trust a bot over that.
Yeah, I get you have wares to proffer. I totally understand that, but creating fictitious people that are shilling your product like that drives me nuts. And that's been happening more and more. You're going to see Marvel and Disney do that more as their franchises fall off. I'm willing to predict.
That's sad. That makes me really sad though, because as somebody that like, if you would have met me as a kid, I think we're relatively close in age. So let's say we were kids hanging out together. I was super Marvel. I was watching X-Men, Spider-Man. I'd even watch that shitty Fantastic Four cartoon every once in a while just because it was more superheroes. I couldn't get enough Marvel. So to see these movies come to life in a certain way, I've enjoyed. Yeah, the pre-MCU days were rough. You had your Daredevil, and Daredevil's one of my all-time favorite characters, and that movie is okay at best. But you also had your Fantastic Four movies, which are shitty. You had your bad Spider-Man. And then the MCU comes along like, hey, we're going to make this big universe. We're going to do this right. And then you're like, okay, cool. And I've been so into it for so long. I'll admit there are faults. I'm not even going to deny it. But I just don't, I hope they don't go to those depths. I just really don't want to see that. But if they're doing it with Star Wars, why not that?
No, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. They almost don't have to because the press are so... I think that's part of what the social justice stuff is about. It's not so much that they're completely married to the ideology, although they are. It's also they want those brownie points because they know that if they stick a divisive issue that SJWs can kind of latch onto, then there's always going to be an incentive for people to defend the movies, at least on that basis. Right? Like if you've got gender studies major there, then they're always going to feel a compulsory need to defend the film because it's such a watershed for women's rights or whatever, because two women crash into vehicles for some reason. This is worth fucking putting your life on the line for, apparently.
I was really worried about Wonder Woman last year. Um,
Yeah.
the way the SJW media and all this shit, they tried to like spin it as this big achievement for women in movies, and then you watch the movie and it's really not that, and I guess you feel refreshed, or I don't know.
It really just struck me as kind of, hey, we made a Marvel movie. Like back when Marvel movies were, you know, they were actually Marvel movies. They weren't just, hey, look, I'm on the gender spectrum. You know what I mean? Like it was that kind of movie. That's kind of what DC did with Wonder Woman. They kind of took the exact opposite tack of what Marvel have been taking of late, where they were just like, you know what, let's just have it be kind of a swashbuckling superhero adventure. And
I say they just remade Captain America and put a woman and set it in World War I instead of World War II.
Yes, this too. You're absolutely correct on that point.
That movie, the only thing is, I guess I was so okay after we sat through the Ghostbusters debacle and the Force Awakens, Rey as a Mary Sue train wreck. I was ready for Wonder Woman to be that, and then it wasn't, because remember they had the all women screenings at the Alamo Draft House, and they were trying to make it like this sisterhood of I don't know, not traveling pants, but of like Wonder Woman. It wasn't that. It was nice, but the more I watch that movie, I do see a lot of flaws with it, and I won't even go as far to say it's the best DCEU movie.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
Now, it's weird though to think how far DC movies have fallen, because we're only 10 years. We're not even to the date yet. This July, excuse me, we'll be at the 10-year release date or the 10-year anniversary of The Dark Knight, which many people consider the best superhero movie and the best Batman movie. I say noted both of those statements.
Me too.
What's your favorite Batman movie?
My favorite, I'm going to take shit for this, but is Batman Returns. Personally.
Okay.
I think it's the only version, and the Catwoman is the main reason why. I think it's the only version of Catwoman where she has anything resembling a motivation of any kind. It's a goofy-ass motivation, but it's better than what the fuck is her origin this week in the fucking comics? Oh, I'm a jewel thief. No, wait, I'm a whore.
Yeah.
No, wait, I'm a whore jewel thief. That's what I am.
No,
wait, I'm a high society. Like, she's constantly rebooting her fucking origin. Whereas in the movie, it's just like, oh, her boss tried to kill her and she managed to survive. It's a revenge tale. Easy. You know what I mean?
I get it. For as much as I'm not a Batman Returns fan, I do like her the most. I like her more than Batman in that movie.
Oh, that's that scene at the ball.
Oh, yep, I know what you're talking about.
That is, they tried that. Oh man, fucking Dark Knight Rises. They tried to remake that scene, and it was just like cringe. It did not work at all. They tried to kind of soft remake it where they're dancing and she's doing the weird fucking Catwoman whisper voice. Oh, Dark Knight.
What they needed was Super Freak by Rick James playing from the orchestra earlier, like they did in Batman Returns.
Everything is improved by a fucking big band version of Super Freak.
You know, it's funny though. I mean, technically, I think it's Super Freak, but that was like the year after You Can't Touch This came out. So I guess it still felt like people go, "Oh my God, You Can't Touch This is at this Gotham City Ball. It's so cool." Blah blah blah. And you know, as a kid, I would hear that and go, "Oh, MC Hammer," and then no, Rick James. You know, you get older, you understand, you learn about music, and then you look back at your childhood self and go, "You were fucking stupid," but you live and you learn. For me though, Batman 1989 is my Batman movie.
That's a great movie.
A close second is Batman Begins. Why could I not think of a name? Batman Begins. I really like the focus on Batman's origin story, plus the ending where he goes, "I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you." I laugh at that every part. And then I even love the part with the Joker card. When Commissioner Gordon gives him the card, he goes, "I'll look into it." And then he like flies away or swoops away. I'm like, Jesus, I'm ready for the next movie.
Exactly. No, I absolutely dug Batman Begins. I think that movie is kind of weird. That one, everybody will talk about Rises, everybody will talk about The Dark Knight. That movie, Batman Begins, kind of faded in the background a little bit, which is weird because I remember when it came out, everyone was really fucking hot on it.
Yeah.
I remember that was the first Batman. I remember this vividly. Roger Ebert saying this is the first time outside of the cartoons that they got Batman right. And, you know, a big fat fuck nerd like him, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So
I remember being in Spain when that movie was about to come out, and the hype over there was big. Because I think if you look at it, the movie didn't make that much money overall. But I remember I was 15, no, I was 16, and I remember seeing like giant billboards for it in Spain, and then in the subway they had all these Batman posters in the subway for this movie. And I was like, cool. First thing I did when I got back to America is went and saw that fucking movie, and I was just like, wow, I'm ready for more Batman, because it was an 8-year gap between the shitty Batman and Robin and that, and it gave you time to recover. And we're not going to get any time to recover from Marvel movies. Like, it worked out well that you went from Batman and Robin being shitty, then Spawn came out, and I don't know how you feel about Spawn.
how far do you figure we are from another Spider-Man reboot? How long do you think they wait next time?
You know what I think they're going to do, and I think they're going to do it to piss people off. I think they'll kill off the current Peter Parker and just do Miles Morales. Ugh. And they'll just continue. Yeah, dude.
That'd be rough.
You are talking to a guy that, like, I was on a stream earlier with Ethan Van Sciver, who works for DC. And we were talking about Spider-Man, and I'm one of those people, like, when you talk about comics, I go to Spider-Man instantly. I think I have 80% of the entire Amazing Spider-Man run. I think I have every issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, and we're just talking singles, not trade paperbacks. I'm really into the character. When people bring up Miles Morales and mistake him for the real Spider-Man, I want to vomit a little bit. And I think that Disney and Sony are going to listen to the stupid people that bitch the loudest online and do that next. We will never see, well, not we'll never. I say, let's see, it came out in 2016. In 2017 for Homecoming. I say by 2020 we're done with Peter Parker, and then maybe in 2025 we see a reboot of Peter Parker after this Miles Morales experiment fails.
Woof. No, thank you.
No, I'm not even on the Homecoming train.
Yeah, I don't get it. That's the weird thing. Spider-Man's a bit of a catch-22 in that he's ostensibly sort of the flagship for Marvel, but periodically he just kind of shits the bed. And I'm talking like in comics too. I remember when, before Marvel Knights came out, the Marvel Knights line at Marvel Comics, Joe Quesada has been really frank about this in interviews for years. He thought Spider-Man had died as a character. Like, his sales had fallen way off. People weren't interested. That kind of happens with Spider-Man every now and then. He's just kind of a character who goes through extreme cycles of being like the top selling book at Marvel and being way in the sales basement. Very strange. And the movies definitely follow suit, where you have the first 2 movies which did really fucking well and set all kinds of records. And then you have the 3rd movie. And then you have Amazing Spider-Man. And then Jamie Foxx is an electric guy for some reason. And then whatever the fuck is going on now, where his outfit is ribbed for her pleasure.
I had a one of these with a guy named Mahler. He was from the UK, and we talked for about 30 minutes why Homecoming Spider-Man is not really Spider-Man of the comics. And he goes, but why should it be? And I go, well, if you're adapting the character, I'm not saying everything has to be, line for line, with great power, there must also come great responsibility and all that shit. But they didn't even get the core of the character right in Homecoming. We got something else that wasn't Spider-Man. There was no guilt. There was no reason for him to be Spider-Man. He was just a kid in a really expensive costume that somebody else made, and he was just fucking around. And that's not Spider-Man to me and a lot of people.
Totally. No, exactly. It's kind of like when they made the Daredevil movie and they left Stick out. It's like, what the fuck? Like, so this blind kid goes from having nebulous science shit splashed in his eyes to now he's a ninja. He's just a ninja. He learned it one day. It's like, what? He can do backflips and fucking Matrix back bends and stuff. And you're like, where did he learn that? Like, in the comics, there was a blind ninja guy who taught him to do that shit.
Mm-hmm.
In this, he's just, the gack that got spilled in my eyes. It gave me superpower.
I haven't thought of that shit in years. I remember seeing Daredevil on the first day it came out. So in February of 2003.
I'm the biggest Daredevil fan on planet fucking Earth, and I dig the director's cut of that movie.
I got it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, the director's cut is actually pretty good. It cuts out most of the romance shit and replaces it with like a murder mystery and Daredevil doing detective work and shit. But it also puts Coolio in the movie, so good with the bad.
Well, I think a problem with Daredevil is something that pops up in like the Superman movies. When you get like a producer like Avi Arad or the Salkinds for movies like that don't. I'm not even trying to sound like xenophobic when I say it, but you get these like people that don't get the American side of the hero, and they bring in these weird things that don't work. Like with Superman. Superman's great. Like I like that movie, but there are so many weird things that they focused on and brought. And when you got a guy like Avi Arad, who's toy sales first, Daredevil second, and he's so worried about the real life relationship between Ben Affleck and Jennifer Gardner, it happened there. So let me retract that. But then you got them trying to copy off the success of Spider-Man. They weren't even worried about making it like a truly accurate Daredevil movie. It was that weird era where everything wanted to be Spider-Man because Spider-Man made the most money.
The filmmaker himself, though, Mark Steven Johnson, you could tell he was a fan. He had to have been fucking heartbroken about a lot of the stuff they had to cut out. But yeah, a lot of that was Avi Arad. Because I know Avi Arad was like, okay, we need to push this out. I think the big thing that killed it was going to be released on Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the fucking Benefer thing that was going on, and they were like, okay, we can totally exploit this. We can absolutely, if we shove this out for a Valentine's Day release, then we have the Hollywood power couple in it. Like, this will be the consummate date movie. And if I remember correctly, it did make its money back and then some. Like, it did all right. It's not like it was a bomb or anything, but it's just the fans didn't care for it mainly. And the theatrical cut wasn't very good. It's just not that good. Director's cut's totally different ball game. It's actually like, I don't know, fucking 30 minutes longer or something. It's actually a pretty dramatic difference. Still,
the Punisher's like that too.
Yeah, still a flawed film, but much, much, much better. But of course, we wound up getting the Netflix show, which is fucking exceptional. So never mind. Yeah. It doesn't even fucking matter anymore. But
it's funny you bring that up. I was looking through my, that little history feed on your Facebook. This day in history. So within the last, I think, week and a half, in March of 2015, I kept posting about how much I loved the Daredevil Netflix series.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, my favorite story, I think, was at Birthright, the one where he fights Nuke and Captain America gets involved after the Kingpin.
Born Again.
That's what it's called. Where the Kingpin comes in and figures out Karen Page gives the identity of him and shit. That story, I tell everyone to read that story.
Yes, that's apparently what the next season is about. I think we're gonna get. They've been playing the new characters in the new season pretty close to the vest. I have a feeling one of them's going to be Bullseye. I think, and I don't know. I don't know who they're going to cast. I know Jason Statham was lobbying for it, so who knows?
I want to give Colin Farrell a second chance.
I want a fucking costume.
The only supervillain actor that played a supervillain that I'd like to give a second chance to would be Jim Carrey. Well, let's say 10 years ago, Jim Carrey, when he was a little more serious, Jim Carrey could have done the Riddler again, because it would have been interesting to see the same actor do two different takes. Other than that, I don't even know who would play him. Like, I'm worried about what they're going to do with Dr. Octopus and the inevitable Spider-Man sequels. Like, they did it really well the first time.
They did. You cast Alfred Molina. The script was pretty good. I thought Spider-Man 2 was a pretty good movie.
I was, as a guy that was stupidly into Spider-Man to a point where I can tell you who inked certain issues and crap like that. When I saw that movie, I was just like, wow, holy shit. Because the first one was great and I loved it. And the second one, I was really into it. And I remember I bought the special edition at Walmart the day it came out. Actually, when the first movie came out on DVD, I was 14 in the 8th grade. I took a bus to our local mall. Actually, it wasn't even our local mall. It was the mall about 20 miles away. I rode a bus to go pick up this movie. That's how much I cared about getting Spider-Man right away. Like, those two movies were huge deals to me. And the older I get, I do see their flaws, but I'm still impressed with how close they were in terms of character, just the way the characters were presented. Not maybe maybe they didn't have web shooters, whoopty shit, but the guilt was there of Spider-Man, and it was nice to see Harry Osborn have reasons.
I think those movies are a lot closer to the comics than I had previously given them credit for, actually, because they get kind of the essence of the characters right, which I think all these years later, with all the movies that just don't, I think I can appreciate more.
You know, now sometimes you just need context in order to fully appreciate what is actually working with a given film at any given time. But, you know, nowadays with the Homecoming and Amazing Spider-Man, where it's like they have so many things going for them, but then they just fuck up one or two things, and it's like, all I can focus on is those one or two things.
I couldn't stop focusing on Aunt May knowing Spider-Man's identity at the end of Homecoming.
What the fuck was that?
People go, that happened in the comic books. Yeah, it happened in the year 2003, I'm pretty sure. It was either 02 or 03 when she found him beaten and bloodied, laying on his bed in his suit. Then the next issue, he had to explain it. Spider-Man just became
comics
Spider-Man.
That was.
Yeah. I don't think that I fell off of the comic book bandwagon until about, God, recently. You talk about the Spider-Man being in the shitter sometimes in terms of sales. I'm not buying the book. I mean, apparently it's supposedly really good right now, and I need to be getting back into it. But like, when who was writing it? Not Mark Waid. What's his fucking name? Dan Slott. When he did Spider-Man, Tony Stark, I just checked out. That's not the character, man.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's what's so weird about the current crop of writers at Marvel is they all seem way more interested with kind of writing their stories and then kind of jamming Spider-Man into it than they are in actually writing a good Spider-Man story, if that makes sense.
I agree 100%.
The exact same thing happened with Daredevil and Mark Waid, where it was like Mark Waid wanted to write his irreverent hipster retrosploitation comic, and he's like, oh, Daredevil's available. It's like, fantastic, great. And of course the sales were shit, and we're still pretending all these years later that it was a great run and it was pioneering and it was yada, yada, yada. When in actuality, nobody fucking bought it at the time. Nobody's buying it now. It was the lowest selling Daredevil run since 1998, since the relaunch. And yeah, that's what you get basically when you try and wedge this character into a story where he doesn't fucking fit. I understand not everything needs to be grim, dark, not everything needs to be Frank Miller worship, but you know, Mark Waid went into business for himself. I hate when fucking writers do that. It drives me up the fucking wall.
I love how you use a wrestling term right there, going into business for himself.
Yes.
That's one thing you put in all your videos that I always pick up on. Like you had a Steven Richards picture from the Right to Censor in one of your videos not too long ago.
Oh, man.
Oh, your Black Panther.
I got beaten up because I was such a mark for Steven Richards.
Oh, my God.
Censor. No, seriously. Well, I didn't get beaten up. My friends did. So, okay. I have to tell the story now.
Go ahead, man.
I was a mark for Right to Censor. So we're Raw comes to Phoenix in early 2001. I want to say February maybe. And it was right around the time Right to Censor was hot. They were white hot. I think people forget how hated they were.
Oh, I remember. That was the best time in wrestling around then.
Oh, man. They were despised. They were more hated. And I'm convinced to this day that's why they killed the group. I think they had more heat than Triple H. So, no, I really think that's why they killed them. So they were despised. And they had gone from like red hot to white hot because they had just kidnapped the cat who was taking her clothes off at pay-per-views. Okay. You take away the titties, you're going to get some heat.
Oh, right? Yeah.
You're going to get some heat. So they abduct the cat. And the idea is they're inculcating her. They're gonna indoctrinate her into a member of Right to Censor. And so I guess they had just gotten her and they were about to come out and cut a promo or something. So what do? We decide to go to the event dressed as Right to Censor with gigantic censored signs. And we show up. We're like up in the balcony, and the minute we walk into the section, rolling boos. For us, just us in the entire section. Everybody in the section is booing us just for dressing that way. That's how fucking hated they were. So we're like, we're going to see some shit here. Because if it's this bad and we're just walking to our seats, imagine what's going to happen when that fucking siren hits and they walk out to the ring. So we're sitting there and I'm kind of dreading what's going to happen. But at the same time, I'm kind of loving it because, you know, I'm a natural heel. So we're sitting there, and sure enough, they do this like pre-tape where they're showing Right to Censor walking to the arena or whatever, and you can hear it. Like you could just, you know how you could just sense it when people are like planning to do some shit to you. It's kind of the hair stands up in the back of your neck, and you know some bullshit's gonna pop off. So that siren hits, and I swear by God and gentle Jesus, every piece of refuse in that fucking section, every drink, everything that was not nailed down was thrown at us immediately. As soon as the siren hits. And so I'm there with 3 friends, a female friend, a dude who's kind of my size, and a big kind of linebacker looking dude, right? He actually played football in high school. I'm in high school at this point. And we're sitting there and fucking, so a guy takes a gigantic fucking drink. I mean, like, you know, the size of a fucking depth chart. This drink has an undertow. And he chucks this thing, and the friend who is about my size turns around just in time, and he sees it coming, and he ducks, and it soars over his head, and it hits this Mexican guy's girlfriend right in front of him.
Ooh.
And little shrimpy Mexican dude, he's pissed, and he walks over, and so my big linebacker friend is standing right on the aisle. What does shrimpy Mexican dude do? He like sidesteps him. He sidesteps the big dude because he's a pussy. and he punches my normal average size friend right in the throat.
Oh.
And he goes down like a slab of beef. Like he plop. And he's blue. He's blue in the face. He can't get air. I thought he had crushed his larynx or Adam's apple or something. And like I was freaked. And my female friend goes down to like 10 to him because he can't breathe. And we're freaked out. And like Mexican guy looks over, sees the big linebacker friend, and immediately bolts. He rolls around. And so me and the linebacker dude go running after him. And we whip around the corner right into arena security. Mac face dab in arena security. They were right there. And they asked my friend, who's by then he's gotten his win back or whatever. They're like, do you want to press charges? And he's like, no, it's fine, whatever. And as a thank you, basically, because it's less paperwork for the arena, they're like, oh, okay, you can go back and meet some of the superstars. So we got to meet Bull Buchanan and Goodfather, which was cool. And Godfather, Jesus Christ, with the cologne, man. I swear to God.
That bad?
Oh, man. We shook hands. I swear to God, the smell transferred. It was insane. It was a transient scent. But yeah. That couldn't have been nicer, though. Could not have been nicer. I wanted to say, hey, you were Papa Shango.
You fucked up at WrestleMania 8 and missed your cue. Oh well.
This is true. I loved Papa Shango, man.
I wasn't a fan back then. I got into wrestling in '99, and I've pretty much stuck through it religiously since then. But there were good times back then, and there were bad times like fairly recently. And the right to censor. I just remember being a kid, and anytime that fucking warning shit would come on, I just wanted to turn off my TV. Like they had X-Pac heat with me.
They were hated. It was amazing. They were so fucking hot as heels, and they missed the boat on that one.
When they fucking made Billy Gunn go from Mr. Ass to the one Billy Gunn, I was pissed, dude, because I loved that song, I'm an Ass Man. I used to listen to that as a kid. I had the CD, and I would laugh and think, oh, this is so hilarious, blah, blah, blah. As an adult, I think it's fucking stupid. But back then, I was a big Billy Gunn and New Age Outlaws fan. And then, so yeah, fucked it up.
No, exactly.
And the thing is, they just went off into they disappeared one day, like right after WrestleMania 17. It was like, oh, right to censor's no more.
Oh yeah, they crushed them. I mean, if you watch that WrestleMania 17, they just teabagged them.
Oh, that's my favorite WrestleMania. I've seen that. That's the right to censor match I've seen the most.
Yeah, I hated that WrestleMania. I remember hating it when it first aired. It was like compared to the two that had come before, which even WrestleMania 2000 was not that great.
Oh God, no.
but compared to that one, like it was a perfect example of what's wrong with the product today. It was a bunch of great matches, but the storylines went nowhere. It was like that. Whereas, and everyone hates WrestleMania 15. I love 15 because it was like an episode of Raw. It was like the business was so hot at WrestleMania 15 that they didn't even look up. They weren't like, oh, it's WrestleMania. Let's finish in our pants because it's WrestleMania. No, it was like, fuck it. Let's just keep going with what we're doing. It's like, it was just another pay-per-view. which I dig. That's a good indication that your storylines are working and your business is thriving. Whereas now, oh my God, it's WrestleMania. Let's fucking paint it in golden letters across the sky. Meanwhile, no one's watching your fucking show and you're drawing, 1.9 ratings and shit for Raw. Like, come on. But, yeah.
They're in a weird place. It's weird for me as a fan. Like, of the brands of entertainment I've always enjoyed, they're all in the shitter. Even James Bond's in the shitter with all this talk of we're gonna kill him. And hashtag Me Too movement needs to be addressed in James Bond movies. It's like, what the fuck?
Did you see my post earlier on Twitter? We need a Disney princess that fights communists. It's kind of the same thing is happening with James Bond, where it's like, oh, we need a yellow James Bond, we need a silver James Bond. We need a.
Sounds like the Power Rangers, folks. Just fucking watch that shit. No, the thing is, this is how I boil down a lot of entertainment. I'm not saying I feel entitled to this shit, but the complaints a lot of people have with every form of entertainment, I feel like a lot of those are addressed if they would just watch the shit instead of coming up with their own ideas about what these things are. It's like, there's other agents. There's black agents. There's white agents. There's, Asian agents. James Bond encounters those. James Bond's this white dude.
Yeah. But that's the thing. They want to commodify it. They don't want to actually watch it and give a decent adaptation. It's like the new Ghostbusters. Hey, folks, there's a new Ghostbusters flick. And the entire surviving original cast featuring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, and Rick Moranis will be at home not watching it like the fucking most of us. You know what I mean?
I think Rick Moranis shit on that, didn't he?
He sure did. Good man.
Yeah, that guy was... I know why he stopped acting, because I think his wife died, right? And then he just decided to take care of his family.
That's awful. Yeah, that's terrible. I forgot about that.
But I love Rick Moranis. You brought up Spaceballs earlier. I got that on Blu-ray. That movie, he's great in that.
Yeah, he was absolutely genius in that. I remember growing up, he was in everything.
Fuck yeah, he was. Little Giants, right? That was him.
Yeah. No. How did we go from that guy being in every comedy to Seth Rogen being in every comedy? How did that happen?
How did Melissa McCarthy happen? She's never had anything worthwhile. At least Seth Rogen's had some funny shit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Seth Rogen to me is inspirational though, because I always look at it and go, if he can make it, so can I. Because he's ugly as shit. He's really not that funny. It's all about who he knows, and he just gets high and comes up with some crazy shit. So anyone can do that. Why not us?
Yeah, exactly.
Now the only comedians, I don't even know if any comedians that I'm really into. I was really into Louis C.K. for a while, and then his new special came out, and fuck that. Chappelle, I was a big Chappelle fan growing up, and then he kind of lost it after that, that hiatus. I didn't enjoy his Netflix stuff that much.
The one who still kills it for me is Nick DiPaolo. That's the one I follow religiously. Nick DiPaolo kills it, but because he's not a lefty, he's not getting any fucking Comedy Central specials. You know what I mean? He's hawking his stuff on CISO and Hulu, and you know what I mean? Like he's not on Netflix, and he's not going to get on Netflix because he doesn't vote the right way. But oh my God, he's uproariously hilarious. I love Nick DiPaolo. But yeah, unfortunately, fucking what happened to stand-up?
Amy Schumer?
Does she even have a fucking stand-up? Has she done stand-up?
She did the leather special on Netflix.
No. Sorry, I was thinking of I was thinking of a different chick. Yes, of course, Amy Schumer has done stand-up. Really, really bad stand-up.
She ripped it off. I love that video that's out there where people are like, hey, this is a Dave Attell joke where he talks about his balls smelling like a foot. And then Amy Schumer rips it off. It's like, my pussy smells like a barnyard animal. It's like, okay, I see it. And then the worst one was when she made the Ellen DeGeneres popcorn joke to Ellen DeGeneres.
Ugh.
Cringe.
That's awful.
Yeah. It's so weird. We elevate these people in society, these entertainers. I'm using air quotes that you can't see again. We elevate these entertainers that just rip off better shit that came before it. We can even roll it back to Star Wars. That's just a rip off. The stand-up comedians, it's the same shit. Why do we have a Lethal Weapon TV show? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many things. It's just like, there's no originality anymore.
No, absolutely. And I mean, look, everything's going to be derived from what came before. I totally get that. But, Amy Schumer's a plagiarist. And fucking Carlos, just like Carlos Mencia before her was a fucking plagiarist. He kind of went away.
Thankfully.
You notice? Yeah, but why was he pushed so fucking hard? That was kind of an SJW thing too. We need the Latino comedian. You know what I mean? Like we need that guy to be. He was getting pushed really hard at the time. Or he had Mind of Mencia going on.
I remember.
They had just done the Latin Kings of Comedy and every other fucking thing. They needed a new George Lopez.
Basically. I never got the appeal of George Lopez. I liked his show, but I've seen other stuff he's done. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, he's kind of like the Mexican Jerry Seinfeld. It's kind of a, I guess that was funny. I guess. Okay.
I never really got into anything with Seinfeld. I've seen the show, whatever.
I love the show, but his stand-up is hit or miss.
I guess my type of comedy is I like a little bit of the cruder stuff that has like little like bits of intelligence in it. Like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is my favorite comedy show because there are times where it's raw, but there are times where it's really insightful. And I'm like, this is what I need right now. Because I just want to laugh. I'm not really worried about like Mad About You. I did not like that show as a kid. I was just like,
oh. Although there was a really funny, I always say this, Mad About You was pretty bad, but there was a really great episode where, have you seen the one where he takes the Viagra? It was right after Viagra came out, right? And like so Viagra in the beginning, I don't know if it still does this, but apparently it like turned your vision blue sometimes. So he has to take the Viagra because he can't get it up. So his wife is like across town, and somehow her clothes get stolen or something while she's changing. So she's naked in some like fucking bathroom stall across town, and he has to get her dress, and her dress is fucking blue. So he's got this raging Viagra hard on, and he has to find. I know it's hard to believe this was on Mad About You, but yes, it's like erection jokes and shit.
90s NBC. That seems kind of edgy for them.
It actually was. And he's like looking for all the dresses are blue, of course. So he just grabs like an armload of dresses. And then he's walking across town with the giant Viagra erection, and they show him in a crowd full of people, and all the people are like, ow, ow. he's like, excuse me, pardon me. It was actually a good episode, actually, but that's the only episode of Mad About You I ever thought was remotely humorous.
I was about to ask you whatever happened to Paul Reiser, but then Stranger Things popped up, so there he was.
Is he in that?
Yeah, he's in season 2. He plays a doctor.
Really? I thought he had died.
One of my favorite movies is Beverly Hills Cop, so I usually keep up with the cast. So I'm like, I wonder who's alive or dead. So like, very few people from the movie are dead, and Paul Reiser is still alive, surprisingly.
I thought you were going to say Aliens on that one. Although wasn't he cut out of the movie or something, or maybe he's only in it for a second? I can't remember. He
has an action figure recently made by NECA. I think was his name Carter Burke, something like that. He's in like a deleted. No, he's not. He's like in the director's cut. Like
exactly. He's in the fancy pants DVD edition.
I like that movie, Aliens. I'm not one of those people that's in love with it. Like I love Terminator 2, and I really, really like Terminator. But for James Cameron movies, it's like those two, and then the other ones just don't do it for me.
Because they're all other movies. Fucking Terminator's ripped off from an Outer Limits episode. Titanic is just a mix of Titanic 1958 and A Night to Remember. I mean, he literally just stole those two movies and smashed them together. Fucking Aliens is just Starship Troopers, and they replaced and I mean the book here, not the movie. The fucking Space Marines and the whatever the fuck. And actually, a lot of Aliens is swiped from I was just reading a website where they were comparing it, and I totally... the fucking Ant movie. A lot of... Actually, some exact shots, in fact, are swiped from them. Cameron's just a fucking hack.
I don't get like how his movies make so much fucking money, too. Like, Avatar is one of the worst movies I've seen.
He's a great marketer, and audiences prefer Risperdal to Reason. And that's pretty much where we're at.
But like my buddy his Aliens is his favorite movie. I remember he's like, we got to watch Avatar. I got the Blu-ray. We're going to sit down and watch it. So what was it early 2010 when we're watching it? And I'm like, okay, I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen Fern Gully in 3D. Let's go for it.
I saw Fern Gully in theaters, and that was a much better experience. But man, Avatar, I just don't know how that's the highest grossing movie ever made.
Yeah, neither do I. I do not understand. I think a lot of it was the 3D gimmick. A lot of it was scheduling too. I don't remember what it was up against, which is probably a good indication that it wasn't up against much.
Yeah, probably.
I think it had a lot. It was just kind of a confluence of circumstances, and of course, James Cameron having his name attached to something, as long as it doesn't have Jessica Alba in it, it's gonna do pretty well.
There was that. You've heard about the old James Cameron Spider-Man movie that never got made, correct?
Yes, of course, yeah, and he's been trying to make that Battle Angel Alita movie for years too. And,
that looks fucking dumb. I'm sorry to anyone out there that likes that kind of stuff, but I looked at that trailer and I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
The older I get, the more selective I am with my theater going experiences, to a point where it's like I'll just miss a month worth of movies and then maybe catch them a year later on like Redbox or something. I don't know what it is. I'm just really stingy right now.
A lot of that SJW nonsense, fucking have you ever heard James Cameron talk about politics? He's all on board with that bullshit.
I mean, like somebody who's not.
I mean, he's just hardcore with it, though. I mean, he's fucking... And that's the thing about it. Like, as the Weinstein phenomenon clearly demonstrates, when I brainstorm institutions that should be retrofitted into an engine of feminist discourse, I'd rank the very same Hollywood machine that turned the casting couch into a ubiquitous, genuinely misogynistic merry-go-round of underage sexploitation, just a notch or two above Joseph Fritzl's basement. You know what I mean? Like, it's right around there, tier-wise. I don't understand why they're constantly trying to turn a Hollywood that, fucking read sometime about what happened to Judy Garland. Read sometime about what happened to Veronica Lake back in the day. Not exactly a nexus of feminism.
Sorry. Somebody sent us a thing. They want us to talk about the SJWs and Star Wars with the representation matters BS. Have you heard about that?
Fill me in.
Well, apparently there's a hashtag that just says Star Wars representation matters. And again, a moment ago when I said to you, hey, a lot of these problems people have with these movies are addressed if they just paid attention. I feel like that's another one of them. It's what do you need represented? There are Asian people in Star Wars. There are black people. There are white people. Oh, you mean like some weird, odd, like 2017 politics? You need like your gay black guy from the whatever planet, the mining planet.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Tell his backstory. Like that shit doesn't sell. It doesn't matter to people, man.
Strangely enough, there was a really good episode of, believe it or not, Will and Grace that parodied this really well. So Will and Grace takes place in San Francisco, right? I think. And they're so there's like a mayoral election. And it starts out just being a Democrat versus a Republican. And then the Republican comes out as gay. And they're like, oh, shit, now we've got to vote for the Republican because he's gay. And then the Democrat comes out as a lesbian. And they're like, oh, shit, now we've got to vote for the lesbian. And so the whole time, Will and Grace are like feuding over which person is more of a minority, like that they need to vote for. And then they get to the end of this episode and they're like, they're arguing about who they should have voted for and who's more oppressed and blah, blah, blah. And then Jack walks in and they're like, God, he's like, what are you arguing about? It's like, we're arguing about who we should have voted for mayor. And they're like, oh, who'd you vote for? He's like, I voted for the black guy. And they're both like, there was a black guy? And they run out to change their fucking vote. It's like that, it's like the constant, the oppression Olympics.
I was just about to say that phrase, the oppression Olympics. It reminds me of the whole Gamergate thing.
Absolutely. No, totally. But that's the thing. You want to talk about representation in Star Wars? You know what I'd like represented in Star Wars? A good beginning, middle, and end. How about that?
We haven't had that in 30 years.
Yeah. How about fucking rising action, climax, and denouement? Let's get on that one.
It's never going to come back. They're focused on toy sales, porgs, and Daisy Ridley's a strong female character, yet she can't do anything on her own. Everything's given to her. Isn't that the exact opposite of a strong female character?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the one thing about this channel. There's a we had an interview with a guy from Retro Blasting. It's a really great channel, listeners. If you obviously haven't subscribed, you need to do it now. But my point is that guy was getting some heat because you associated with world-class bullshitters. They hate women. They hate minorities. First off, our channel's like one white dude, so get that through your fucking heads, people. Secondly, the thing is, we always say it doesn't matter if it's inclusive as long as it's a good story. If it's inclusive and a good story, we're all for it. But like, if your movie, that's your like, oh, well, it's a shitty movie, but it was made by a first-year film student who happened to be a black Latino. Okay, yeah, but the movie's garbage. Who gives a fuck?
No, exactly. It's like the fucking the Call of Duty thing. You heard about this, right? The new Call of Duty with the black female Nazis in it.
What the fuck?
Black female Nazis in World War II. I'm like, what? Really? They always stumble into something that's inadvertently more offensive. You know what I mean? Like we mentioned earlier, where the Asian chick has a midair collision in a Star Wars movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in the name of representation, they wind up being way more offensive. So here we go: black female Nazis in Call of Duty. Just what the game needed. Another sexist game designer who can't help but have a strong woman slaving over a hot oven. But that's the thing. Like, fucking, it's constantly just, we're going to have representation in this game, but inadvertently we're going to wind up having hate speech, essentially. The chick who takes over the ship winds up crashing it 5 seconds after. That's kind of where Star Wars is at right now. That's where entertainment is at right now. And like we talked about before the stream, Disney, of all the companies to be commodified like this, of all the companies to be gentrified in this manner, Disney is the one where it's most offensive, because you hear constantly, oh, the Warners would be rolling in their grave. Oh, Jack Kirby would be rolling in his grave. Oh, this guy would be rolling in his grave. You want to talk about rolling in your grave? Nobody should be roasting on a spit in his grave more than Walt fucking. He's a rotisserie goddamn chicken in there right now, because this is a guy who testified before Congress about communists in Hollywood. And now those are the people running his company. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Hardcore, far left, like outright advocating socialism. These are the people running his company. You want to talk about rolling in your grave? Poor Walt fucking Disney. Because that's what happened to his company. This is a guy who, so he had a big conflict. Disney had a problem with cartoonists. There was a big cartoonists union. And so you'd have to get into a whole history here, but the sort of cliff notes is the Soviet embassy based out of San Francisco, actually, was essentially a listening post for the Soviet Union. I mean, it was literally like funded by them. It was basically a spy agency for America. You can look all this up, but basically they started funding unions in Hollywood because Lenin was adamant that there's a famous quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something to the effect of all the arts, the most important by far is cinema. And that's Vladimir Lenin. So this is why, like, the communists were absolutely adamant. Okay, this is now our primary vehicle for delivering propaganda during the Russian Revolution. So they're literally funding people in Hollywood, unions and so forth. And the big guy that they had was he ran an organization called the CSU, which was basically a collective of unions. It was, I want to say, collective of studio unions. I think the C is stands for something else, but it was something, collected studio unions or the like. And Herb Sorrell was like a punch a Nazi kind of a guy. If you ever wonder why Antifa are so adamant that you punch quote unquote fascists in the fucking face, it was this Herb Sorrell guy essentially that spearheaded that in the modern day anyways. And he literally would cause work stoppages. The CSU was constantly involved in, there was a big strike in the mid 40s right after World War II. It was actually kind of big headlines. It cast a pall over the Oscars in 1946 and 47. And this Herb Sorrell guy was at the center of all of it. And where Herb Sorrell started out at was he had headed up this cartoonists union. And the Cartoonists Union had a direct conflict with Walt Disney. And Walt Disney saw these people for exactly who and what they were. Walt Disney stood up to these guys, and he knew that they were funded outright by the fucking Soviets. And so he was, fuck these guys. Fuck these guys. And he was one of the first people to shack up with whatever that organization was that Ayn Rand and Ronald Reagan and fucking John Wayne all belonged to. It was kind of the counterpoint to the Humphrey Bogart lefties in Hollywood. I forget what the name of it was. It was a really long acronym. There's a lot of acronyms involved in all of this. But yeah, Walt Disney immediately testified before Congress. He was adamant that these people absolutely existed. I mean, at the end of the day, Joseph McCarthy was kind of proven right about there being a bunch of communists in fucking Hollywood. I mean, I know it's hard to believe looking at all the hardcore right-wing films that are in theaters now, but but of all the companies to be absolutely subjugated by this ideology, fucking Disney? Really? That's what's ridiculous. I can't imagine his family. Or of course, his family probably all have nose rings and fucking rainbow coiffs at this point, too. So feel bad for the guy. He's the exact reverse of what the Walt Disney Corporation was founded on.
I always say this, like, it just seems like bad business because you go out into the real world and people aren't like this. Maybe you go to your comic conventions and you see it, and you go to your college campuses, but like your average everyday American's like, oh, what? If they don't see it, they're like, whatever. But if they do see it, they're like, what the fuck? Like, I got a couple of friends that are like that, and they just listen to a few things I talk about. They're like, I'm starting to see the shit you talk about in movies and entertainment. And I'm like, dude, it's really obvious and it's really stupid.
Yeah.
It doesn't do good. It doesn't do good for anyone.
No, exactly. And more than anything, it just plain isn't. When you shove that shit into your movie, absent any kind of entertainment value being attached to it, it kind of just comes across as proselytizing. And people can detect that, at worst, they're just going to be bored sitting there watching it. You know what I mean? Like, it's, oh, this is completely irrelevant to the story. You know what I mean? That's increasingly what it's like. I think that's why even like mainstream audiences, even audiences that don't have political convictions of any kind, are kind of tuning out of these movies, is because it's like, once you start shoving this stuff into the movie, you're just kind of like, why is this here? You know what I mean?
Oh, I hear you say
average viewer.
Like I always say, you got to do it. I guess it's tactfully is the word I want to use. Like, They Live. It's very political, but very entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little bit of like a satire almost.
Oh yeah, I love John Carpenter. I don't know if he's we always jokingly say on the podcast that Richard Donner's our patron saint. And the only reason we say this is because one day we're all discussing like, oh, I like this movie, this one. And then we were like, oh, those are all Richard Donner movies. And then we're talking about all these things and we all loved them. They were all Richard Donner. But if there's like a secondary patron saint, it's got to be John Carpenter, because that dude next to Spielberg, I can't think of somebody that had a better 1980s in terms of directorial work.
He was pretty good in the 90s too. I think Escape from LA is actually pretty underrated. Personally, I've always said this. I did a review of the movie. It's, in retrospect, it is like a brilliant parody of 80s action movies before it was really fashionable to parody 80s action movies. It's really good. If you go back and watch it, he's like surfing. He's fucking surfing down the street.
I remember that.
He avoids a fucking shark. It's so over the top. I love it. He fucking has a shotgun. He's on a motorcycle. It's crazy. It's absolutely awesome. But there's a great exchange in there that, holy fuck, is it pertinent now in 2018. This movie was made, mind you, over 20 years ago. And he's having an exchange with the general guy, because it's now, it's like a military state. And the general guy is like, no smoking, no drinking, no women, no drugs, no red meat. And Snake looks off to the camera and he's like, land of the free. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's so bang on. There's actually quite a bit of social commentary in there if you watch that movie now. Very underrated.
I'll have to go back and watch it, because when you brought it up, the first thing I thought of was the surfing down the street, and Steve Buscemi was the fucking taxi driver, and I'm just like, I hate this movie. First one's awesome.
I love it. It is held up surprisingly well. The CGI not so much.
Oh no. those are the movies I grew up with as a kid, and back then you watch them and you could tell, but you didn't know. Like you looked at the CGI and you could tell it was different, but you're like, oh, that's cool. It's an effect. It's supposed to look different. Then as an adult, you're like, what? Like one of the worst ones is Eraser, Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie. The crocodiles or whatever. It just looks so stupid. That whole movie looks kind of stupid.
That whole mid-90s period, if you didn't handle CGI with tact and you didn't have the budget of Steven Spielberg, you were fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like one of the few examples, I love The Shadow. It's one of my favorite comic characters, pulp characters, whatever. Apparently they were originally going to have, he was going to have like a CGI cape. And thank God they didn't do it. Like Spawn, you know, he was going to have this crazy flowing fucking Spawn cape. And they nixed it at the 11th hour. And God, thank God, it looks so much better. Like fucking the only bad CGI in that movie, and it's honestly not that bad, is the little knife thing.
Oh, when it flies around the room?
Yeah. That's the only thing. And honestly, that's held up pretty well. But not a whole lot of bad CGI in that movie. A lot of movies have not fared quite as well.
Yeah, you're 100% right. To me, I understand that these are a product of their time, and I try not to go like, oh, this looks like shit, blah blah blah. So it makes the movie naturally, just inherently bad. But they're like I know it's a TV movie, but like the Langoliers, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh my God, I was gonna mention that. I can't believe you went there, but yeah, continue.
Well, I don't know how to say this without sounding like an asshole. I love Stephen King's work, but it's like the adapted stuff is all I've really been exposed to. I need to go back and read some of the stuff to say, oh, I'm a big Stephen King fan. But I'll say it as I really like the adapted works of Stephen King. And I went in college, I was going through as many as I could. And I got to the Langoliers and I went, no, thank you.
Yeah. I had kind of the same thing. I had a history of literature and film. That's what it was. It was just like a gimme class that I had on the side. It was online, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had to watch a lot of Stephen King flick. Luckily, that wasn't one of them. But I remember watching that on TV as a kid. Holy God. The CGI is absolute distilled essence of ass cancer. Jesus, Kit Willow Christ. So bad.
It's Sega Saturn effects. It's like
Panzer Dragoon. Oh my God, yes. Original PlayStation.
Oh my God.
3DO even.
Oh, God. I watched
Atari Jaguar.
I remember that commercial. 64 bits, whatever. It still looks retarded, especially the one where you're that spaceship and the woman's head appears or whatever.
Yes, I remember that.
You know what other the Power Rangers movie, the effects at the end of the movie shit. I will never defend it. I hated it as a kid, but that Megazord at the end is unwatchable.
Oh,
they didn't have it down. Like there are some movies that have CGI from the night. Like I don't say it's perfect, but like Independence Day has a couple shots that look really good, and it's a mixture of practical and CGI, and I like that hybrid. I was actually watching something. It's a channel called Oliver Harper, and the guy was talking about how he feels they jumped to CGI too early, just as they were perfecting animatronics and stuff like that and puppetry.
Yeah. And
I always like to think, where would we be if we did adapt CGI the way we did, but we never gave up on those other forms? Like, because in the early 2000s, there are just rubber effects in a lot of movies, and they don't hold up at all. And
we were talking about Daredevil earlier. How about that climactic fight scene on the organ?
I remember that.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad. There's a particularly awful shot where Bullseye is on the motorcycle and he's driving at Daredevil. Yes, Chris Nolan kind of ganked this scene for Joker and The Dark Knight, believe it or not. And Daredevil, the only variance is at the end, Daredevil jumps up and kicks him off the motorcycle. And it is the fakiest fucking fakey nonsense ever. It is the worst. It looks like two CGI puppets. They could have done it with marionettes and it would have looked more convincing.
Team America style.
And of course, because it's 2003, the camera spins. Because by God, it's the law.
Well, the Matrix, made $1 bajillion, so everything's the fun. Dude, the Matrix. Oh, I don't know which one it is when he fights all the Agent Smiths and it's like a PlayStation 2 game.
Oh, that's bad. Remember how fucking hyperbolic the praise was for those effects at the time?
I remember people. That was the first movie I recall people talking about going to see at midnight. Was it Reloaded? That's the second one.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the first Matrix a lot. It's the other two that I just don't care about.
I don't think they needed to exist, is the bottom line.
Well, see, I'm in the weird category for a lot of movies that have sequels. Like the first one, like Back to the Future is my favorite movie. I don't like the second or third one that much.
Well, it's a good example. I mean, look, The Matrix is basically Dark City, right? It's basically just Dark City with more trench coats and spinny cam. And Dark City is pretty great as a standalone movie. I would not have wanted more. You know what I mean? I would not have wanted Dark City 2 and 3. That's a good movie by itself. And I think they probably should have considered that before making the sequels. It's like, oh, we've got this whole series Bible. Well, yeah, sometimes the Bible stuff is better in the background, though, right? Mm-hmm. Like, in order to make Blade Runner, Ridley Scott, like, fleshed out this whole world. But I wouldn't have wanted to see that world. I just wanted to see glimpses of it because it was more effective that way.
Yes, I think we're in an era now where they flesh it out and they're like the narrative has the holes, but the fleshed out parts that they keep like trying to sell, you're like, oh, but it's so rich in this, and then you're like, but this story makes no fucking sense. Like the core thing that you're supposed to get out of it just doesn't work.
Precisely. Like, did you watch Valerian? Did you?
I watched it on Amazon recently.
Yeah, pretty movie. But I think it's a classic example of that. Whereas if you compare that movie, because it's the same director and kind of the same idea thematically as The Fifth Element, right? If you compare it to The Fifth Element, where you kind of have a little bit of a galactic adventure, but mostly you're just seeing glimpses of the wider world. You don't get into it too much. Whereas with Valerian, it's like, here's the entire universe and everything in it. We're going to pack as much bullshit into 2.5 hours as humanly possible.
Those fish people at the beginning?
Yes, all of it. They just put too much shit in it. And I love Valerian the comic. You know, I'm a huge bande dessinée fan. French comics are the fucking shit. They're largely the reason why we have cyberpunk as it exists today. But, you know, that movie was just, it was over-explanatory to the max. Sometimes it's better to just get a glimpse out the window instead of walking outside and seeing all that shit.
Yeah. You could go back to Star Wars with that. Like when they're on the Death Star, they don't go and sit and tell you how the thing works and all that. You just see all this crazy shit walking around you.
They don't go to a casino planet and save fucking the rainforest.
Sorry, when I say Star Wars, I think of the good Star Wars, you know, original 2, Return of the... I don't look at. I may act like I dislike Return of the Jedi. I really do love it. But I do see a dip from the other two, if I'm going to be 100% honest with myself. Yeah. Like, I went back to watch Return of the Jedi, and I'm like, it starts out incredibly strong. And then maybe 50 minutes in, it starts to feel a little, and then it ends strong. So it maybe just dips slightly, and it's still a really good movie. That Casino Planet scene, I have never seen a more useless. And here's the fucked up part. Rian Johnson was so obsessed with the Canto Bite shit. Like, don't buy the Blu-ray. Please don't. But if you find a rip online of the special features, the documentary Director and the Jedi, get yourself drunk and watch it, because it's going to be 90 minutes of your life where you'll be very angry, but you'll learn why the movie's so garbage. Right. And he spent so much time and money focusing on the Canto Bite sets and the effects that were practical that they didn't focus on why they're doing it. Oh, I'm telling this story. This is my story about, you know, gun runners, you know, people sell to both sides of the war and all this shit. Like, what? No. Yeah. Why is that in Star Wars?
Exactly. Well, you know why that is because it had all that ham-fisted 1% save the fucking whales bullshit in it. And he got married to that concept because of the ideological bent. It's kind of like George Lucas. There's a little bit of that in the prequels with the Iraq war symbology. Definitely, it's very much a product of its time with vote now, vote, you know, all that shit. That's in there. It's a little harder to detect, though, because George Lucas is more tactful about it. But, you know, sometimes the directors get married to it. But is that not like... So what I'm getting from this is it's kind of like George Lucas with the Jar Jar's the key to all this.
Yeah. Canto Bite's the key to everything. It's the wrong fucking door, Rian Johnson.
Unfortunately, there's a glory hole attached to it.
And Kathleen Kennedy puts her cock through it. Oh my god, she is the sole reason that this shit is allowed to happen.
Yes,
like you got to imagine George Lucas is of two minds. He's embarrassed to see his creation hoard out the way it is, even though he hoarded out quite well.
He did.
There was still some respect and reverence for Star Wars. Like when it was time for it to go away, it went away. Yeah. Now it never stops. Like we talked about annual release cycles. We were what, 5 months removed from The Last Jedi?
Yeah.
We're 2 months and a month and 13 days away from the Han Solo movie, and then a year and change from Episode 9, and then we have the Jon Favreau TV series, the guys from the Game of Thrones thing, the Rian Johnson trilogy, and they're going to announce some random person. Oh, we're going to give Ava DuVernay or some shit like that the next one after she fucks up the New Gods. Like, hey, get her on board with Star Wars too. When will it ever fucking end?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it was bad enough with George Lucas doing the whole TV show thing and, all that shit. It was definitely, you had the Clone Wars movie and everything else. It definitely did feel like Star Wars was winding down. And then it's like, I feel like the only reason The Force Awakens really had any momentum was just, absence makes the heart grow fonder. It had been away for a little while. You know what I mean? And once that was exhausted, there really wasn't much below the surface to carry it forward. And so with each iteration, you're just seeing less and less and less. Did you see the statement that the director of Rogue One recently made? Was it last week or something?
If it was last week, no. Like I said, I've been out of town and I didn't do shit.
Yeah, he was saying something to the effect of, well, number one, he said he would never do Star Wars again. Apparently the guy hated Star Wars. First off, right off the bat, you're letting a guy direct Star Wars who hates Star Wars. Let's just linger on that for a moment, shall we?
It shows with these people.
Yeah. And apparently he came in Rogue One. Now, I called it at the time because you could see the fact that they had such extensive reshoots. Clearly something was wrong. And I remember at the time there was a bunch of pushback from the Disney publicity machine. Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing's wrong. Don't worry about it. And I remember all the people saying, oh, Rogue One's going to turn out pretty shitty because there's so many reshoots. There being a lot of pushback against that sentiment. Well, it turns out it was fucking accurate. Apparently this guy came in basically as a cleaner and fixed up the absolutely beshitted project to that point. It was utterly unwatchable. No, dude, it was utterly unwatchable at that juncture.
I've never heard the phrase beshitted before. Sorry.
It was unwatchable at that juncture. But yeah, you should look that up. It's actually a really illuminating interview as far as current Disney.
Well, we're about to have that with Ron Howard in the Solo movie.
Oh, it's so sad to see Ron Howard fall to that too. Jesus.
I've never been a Ron Howard guy, but I've never had a problem with Ron Howard either. Does it make sense? Like he's just been there, and he's Richie Cunningham.
Yeah, it's like I get that there's kind of a Lucas connection with American Graffiti, but come on.
Yeah, well, I remember last year when they announced that he was going to direct the film. He goes, "Oh, I saw Star Wars before any of you, and blah blah blah, and I've loved it since day one." And that's nice, but how many times, like Back to the Future, they brought in Michael J. Fox to replace Eric Stoltz. How many times do reshoots make the movie like night and day to where it's like, holy shit, the original's complete trash? With these ones, you're always like, I kind of wonder what came before it, because this one's fine or it's shitty. Like, it's not amazing. Like, do you get what I'm getting at with that?
Yeah, no, I understand. That I don't get. And that's now 2 movies. And both of them are spin-offs. I wonder if that's a coincidence. But 2 movies that have had serious production difficulty and major reshoots and had to swap out directors. That's interesting.
I don't want to keep saying her name because it's like if you say Beetlejuice 3 times he appears, but like Kathleen Kennedy really...
I would say Bloody Mary in this instance, but okay.
Yeah, I guess Beetlejuice is a good time after all. Or Candyman. It'll just like rip your... I like that movie kind of. I know people are like, oh... There's some shitty 90s horror films. I enjoy Candyman, and even though this movie coming, and then what's that one with Pinhead, Hellraiser from the 80s. I enjoy that movie too. A lot of this gets shit on by non-horror fans, but those only the movies.
Demonic box in this case is in Kathleen Kennedy's panties. Continue.
We jokingly get questions every week. Would you fuck Kathleen Kennedy? I don't know. It would be like the worst experience of your life. Like you would lose a little bit of your soul.
Yeah, not with a chromium plated PP. Not happening.
Who would be worse, her or Oprah?
Oh man, that's rough. Well, at least Stedman is set for life. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess if I could be in that situation. My mom's convinced Oprah's secretly gay for her friend, was it Robin or whatever?
Yeah, Gail.
Yeah, Gail, that's her name, Gail. Who the fuck is Robin? This is bad. Anyway, my point is, like, my mom's convinced that Stedman's just like a plant, and I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah, he's a total beard. Absolutely, it's kind of a Hillary Clinton, Huma Abedin situation. A little bit.
God.
Little bit.
It's the thing is, people get like, oh, you just hate powerful women. No, but these one, well, we'll just go back to Kathleen Kennedy because I'm not an Oprah fan, so I don't know much about her, but like, she just does a bad job constantly. It doesn't matter if she was a dude doing making these decisions, it would be bad no matter who made them.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Speaking, we were talking about Mad TV earlier. You remember the fucking parodies they did on Oprah?
Which ones?
Oh, all of them. They're genius. Every single one. Every single one.
Because whenever you say Oprah parody, I think of Jimmy Kimmel in blackface on The Man Show.
No, Mad TV Oprah.
I'll look that up. Let me look that up real quick. Let me see if I jog a memory.
Deborah Wilson. She was bang the fuck on with the Oprah parodies. And she would always... The joke was, her and Dr. Phil would like tongue kiss on the show and shit.
I'm pretty sure I remember these now.
Yeah, she was great. Deborah Wilson.
That's all. That show, there was a point in time where it was better than SNL. Because SNL...
I think even in its worst, it was better than SNL, honestly. SNL was pretty bad at the time. It was pretty rough.
Because it was Mad TV debuted, 94?
95-ish? Somewhere thereabouts.
So you were talking, I guess, over on SNL, you had Jim Brewer and like early Will Ferrell and a couple other cast. Like, I don't get Jim Brewer's humor. I mean, I don't hate the man, but I just am like, what?
I'm not really familiar with this shit.
He's in Half-Baked, that's about it.
You had Norm Macdonald at the tail end of the Norm Macdonald era, which is great. That's always a plus. But everything else was pretty unwatchable.
Yeah, I just remember maybe about 97, 98, I would do Mad TV the whole hour, then I'd watch the second part of SNL and then go to sleep. But Mad TV, man, Miss Swan, the coffee guy, Michael, what's his face? He'd play Stewart. Those were all awesome.
Never mind the characters though. Like their parodies were just vicious. Like they were just merciless.
Do you remember the Steve Irwin one?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I do. And their parodies of TV shows as well. The one they did of House was just, oh my God, they eviscerated. And they're on Fox too. They're on the same network. And they just eviscerated House. It was just absolute massacre. I guess that's a happy byproduct of no one watching your show, is you can just say whatever you want.
That's a Fox thing, though, because remember, The Simpsons always made fun of Fox.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
I guess, self-deprecation's okay over on that end. But you never hear Disney make those jokes about themselves.
No, sir. No, sir.
I mean,
you don't see a whole lot of Walt Disney was an anti-Semite jokes.
Only on Family Guy.
Which, incidentally, I mentioned before the stream. That's where the whole Walt Disney is an anti-Semite thing came from. Because then as now, whenever you came out as being against communism, you were characterized as being a fascist. So being a fascist, you must hate Jews. That's where the myth of Walt Disney hating Jews came from. It's completely apocryphal. Not true at all.
Now, we've discussed the past of entertainment. Real quick before we close this out, because I feel like the people are getting antsy. Where do you think we're going to be in the future? I mean, we've had this weird renaissance of like the influx of like the return of the 80s, which I like because I guess it makes me feel comfortable. Some of it's been good, some of it's been shitty. Do you think we're going to get an influx of like a return to 90s pop culture where everything was really well, not everything was shitty, but it was like it was a pretty crappy decade in terms of a lot of things. Do you think we're going to go back there, or people are just going to have like the good sense to realize, oh, that decade sucked and we can't cash in on that nostalgia?
I'm surprised you're not recognizing what's happening already. What's
what?
social? No, look. what do you think the social justice shit's coming from? That started in the 90s, dude. That's your 90s nostalgia.
Ugh.
Merry Christmas. Here it is. Social justice warriors, political correctness. That was the decade that gave us, have you ever read Politically Correct Bedtime Stories?
Mm-mm.
Oh, great parody, man. If you hate SJWs, man, read Politically Correct Bedtime Stories. It was written as an absolute evisceration of the social justice phenomenon before it was really known as that. It's great. They just go through, Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, you're appropriating my culture. Like, it's great. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, that was the decade where all that started. This is just the next logical continuation of it, essentially. I think that's the only way the 90s are going to come back. We might have the odd fashion implement or something.
All the shitty mom jeans.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't look good back then. Why are girls wearing them now? I mean, whatever. That's not for this podcast. But yeah. I just remember.
Well, and it's also tricky too because we now live in the age of the internet, and if you notice, our culture kind of flash froze when the internet came along, or broadband internet did, anyways, in the early 2000s. We didn't really progress much as a culture after that because it was like we don't have a central zeitgeist anymore. It's one of the reasons we're so divided. Like the big media companies don't get to corral people into loving things anymore so much. I mean, you'll have big successes, but it's only relative to the, inflation and so forth nowadays. You don't have a big, even though The Force Awakens was really successful, you don't have a Star Wars phenomenon now because people on the internet can immediately voice their reproval. And that doesn't really... It's just something that ever since the internet came along and kind of decentralized everything, ironically, while centralizing a lot of it, that we kind of became more fractious as a culture. Everyone kind of corralled into their own little, their own little tangential tribes and so forth. And that's kind of where we're at. I don't feel like you're mostly going to get kind of a grab bag. The 80s retro thing kind of came back, but it's not like it's a big phenomenon. It's kind of niche. It's cropping up and it's selling, but it's not a big fucking deal. Whereas I feel like the 90s was the last decade where the record companies and the big media companies and the movie producers, they could tell everyone what they like. You can't do that anymore. The internet's too ubiquitous.
I never thought of it like that. That's why I didn't say anything for Yeah. I was going to go with something as superficial as like, we'll get because they're going to make a Bill and Ted movie. And yes, Bill and Ted for one is a product of the 80s, but that, whoa, dude, early 90s thing, I hope that shit never comes back because it was fine back then. And I don't mean to make fun of him because his mom just died, but like the Pauly Shore guy, we never need another Pauly Shore. We don't need Encino Man remade because I like the movie, but it's the shit we grew up with and it was cool then, but like, there's a reason.
Are you kidding me? In the Army now is the Patton of comedy.
What's the one he's in Stepson? I don't like that movie, but I don't hate it either. It's just kind of there. I'm just...
You know what's even worse than Pauly Shore in the 90s? Ironic hipster Pauly Shore in 2018.
He still makes stuff?
Oh, it's awful. Pauly Shore is dead. And hey, guys, look how self-aware I am. I'm so self-deprecating. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. That's another thing that kind of went by the wayside in the modern day, in the age of the internet, is, Hollywood just flat out had to drop the celebrity role model shit. Like, there's no more celebrity idols because we know too much about them now. Back the whole Hollywood just needs to drop it entirely. They need to drop the celebrity role model shit because it's like, oh, Magic Johnson caught HIV and put on 40 pounds of pure muscle. Shit, I guess I'll bareback a biker. It doesn't really work that way. It does not work that way any longer.
No, there are certain celebrities that when they, like Jennifer Lawrence, I can't stand her.
And that's a prime example. In the 90s, Jennifer Lawrence would have been considered, oh God, how untouchable and ethereal, what a beauty. But now we're fucking snatch chat photos and every other fucking thing. It's like it kind of takes away some of the mistake once you've seen their snatch.
That's very true. I remember the fappening quite well. I wasn't even looking for it. Somebody's like, dude, you got to click on this. And it was like the link to Reddit. And it was like Christmas that day. I was just like, oh my God. wow, holy shit, this chick's doing this, blah, blah, blah. And then there was the fappening too. It's like, yeah, I wanted to see Amanda Seyfried suck a dick. So I clicked on it and it was just, an experience.
It was before life was more simple before we had it confirmed that Kevin Spacey is fruitier than Carmen Miranda's hat. Back when we only suspected.
I never really put that much thought into it. Kevin Spacey, I was like, oh, he's good in some movies. And then I was more into other stuff. And then the whole story came out and I'm just like, Jesus. We had this discussion yesterday, me and my friends, as we were driving back. We just kind of shit on Kevin Spacey for a while because my friend goes, well, I can't watch his movies anymore knowing what he did. I'm like, I can, but I know what a piece of shit he truly was. It doesn't really change my opinion of like American Beauty or the handful of other ones that I've watched. Like The Ref. I love The Ref.
It does affect American Beauty a little, the heterosexuality angle. I mean, that guy in retrospect was gayer than a daffodildo. White homosexual. But no, I agree. Plus, with Kevin Spacey, he plays villains so often. It's like, who cares? You know what I mean? Kind of works.
It's the same thing with Chris Benoit. I was never a fan of his when he was living. So and it's terrible what he did, but I can watch his old matches. I don't get like, oh my God, he murdered his wife. I go, this was a damn good match. Or I hate Chris Benoit. I hope he loses. It just, I don't know. I can separate myself sometimes in those things.
Yeah, exactly. Suspension of disbelief, just like how Ryan Reynolds still plays a college guy, and he's like 90 years old now.
Well, I always do like to believe that The Rock's actually a nice guy, so maybe I'm not that good at it, but whatever.
Oh God, what did Kevin Nash say? He's like, oh, what's that? The guy's in his 50s, got divorced, and he's never taken a picture with a female. Oh yeah, that's normal.
Yeah. When I heard that shoot interview, I was like, what if The Rock is gay? Now, The Rock's like my childhood hero. I was like, would it really matter if he was gay? And then I thought, yes, it would. Because I was like, everything I put into him, like, oh, man, he's so cool, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't really care if he was, like, doing dudes, but at the same time, I'm like, that changes everything I thought about him. Because I don't look at him, like, as a character actor, kind of like that wrestler is him, and then Dwayne Johnson plays roles. So that's like childhood me rolling it all into one. And when Kevin Nash said that, I was like, oh no, please don't be true. Like I have a shelf of your action figures, and yeah, I'm not going to take them down if it's confirmed you're gay. But
I know what's next. Travolta.
He came to town to film a movie, and there's a guy I went to high school.
What was it? The Birdcage too.
John Travolta's an actor that I would watch as a kid and go, okay, why is he famous? And then that was it. Like I liked Face Off, and that's the only John Travolta film I was really into.
Yeah.
Then again, I really like it for Nicolas Cage, because Nicolas Cage is fucking insane.
If it's not Battlefield Earth, I'm not interested.
Battlefield. The only time I've ever seen Battlefield Earth was through the Nostalgia Critic video, like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, does anybody really read through the ideology of Scientology and say, let's put this batshit nonsense on screen? Let's make sure, like, fucking Jesus.
I've never.
Jesus.
I'll tell you one thing. I did try to prank call a Scientology center in college, and they called us right back, and it got really weird. So I never did it again.
Oh my!
Because it was 2008 or 9. So was that during the whole Battletoads? No, the Battletoads was GameStop. But we asked something about Scientology, and they called us back, and we're like, nope, we're done.
Yeah, they were gonna sell you Dianetics.
I remember going to the mall and seeing that, like, Mom, what is it? She's like, I don't know, and I never figured out until I was older. It was. I don't know. The 90s were a weird time. You had access to a lot of shit that you didn't know you had access to in many ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's see. Are there any decent John Travolta likes big black cock? That's from one of the people in the comments. Nice. And Meryl Streep is a carpet muncher, apparently, according to Christopher Jackson. So,
yeah, you know what? That wouldn't surprise me either. I don't know.
Ooh,
that makes some sense.
I always think of when I think of Meryl Streep, I think of a girl from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and she was only hired for that movie because she looked like Meryl Streep.
You know what's going to happen with Travolta too? His career is going to be like definitively fucking over, and then he's going to make the press circuit and come out, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be one of those, like, you know, like Pat Patterson coming out. Like, come on. Like, oh, when was Pat Patterson in the closet? When an underage ring boy was in the closet with him? Like, come on, people. Come on.
I saw Legends House. My mom and I looked at each other, and she's like, "Isn't he the gay one?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we just laughed because he's out there crying, "I want to be called Pierre," or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, everyone knew you're gay. Listen to Jerry the King Lawler. Like, it was out there.
Man, there's some great stuff. If you go back and watch those old pay-per-views when the Stooges would be on screen, not just Jerry Lawler, but Jim Ross, they both made little snide comments, like inside jokes. Oh, it's great. Great stuff.
Ever since the network's come out, I've gone back and watched a good chunk of 1998 through 2002. And yeah, I used to hate them because I always remember their hardcore battle or their hardcore evening gown match. Like, that's the only time you've ever had two wrestlers dress up as women and fight a hardcore match. And it included Pat Patterson. So I guess people should have figured it out in the year 2000 instead of 2014 when Legends House came out.
Yep.
I don't know. The Travolta thing, you know what? I'll make you a Duke's brother bet. $1, and I'll give it to you through PayPal. I'll give you a whole $1. We'll make this bet right now. I mean, I agree with you, but I'll play the devil's advocate and say no, it won't happen. But
I bet you
I want to give you that $1.
Wants to be relevant again. Travolta's too much of a drama queen to let his career just fade off into the sunset and live his private life. I bet you anything. Although you do have a point with regard to maybe the Scientologist church wouldn't want him to come out and say that. I don't know, maybe. Because I'm pretty sure that guy doesn't fucking wash his own asshole without consulting the Scientologist church first. But
well, isn't that what happened to his son Jet Travolta? Like, he needed some kind of medical treatment, but the Scientologist church didn't agree, so he died.
I'm not familiar with that, actually. I don't know.
I think it was like around 2008, 2009. I feel like that was a really important time for me for some reason, at least in this conversation. But yeah, he had a son that died, and I'm pretty sure that's what happened to his son. He had some weird like disease or something that could have been cured by conventional science, but no, Scientology was against it, so he let his kid die.
Wow.
I don't know what
stuff.
Yeah, I know. Tom Cruise, I think, was is Tom Cruise still a Scientologist?
Yeah, of course.
Well, no, I thought I read something somewhere where either they're like against divorce or something, and he wanted to be around his kid, and his kid was more important than Scientology.
I don't buy that. He's like the guy within the Scientologist church. The guy.
He seems scary in real life. He's so tiny, but so powerful.
It's always nice to see old men lose their hair with dignity, isn't it?
Well, you could take or if you're a young man like Sean Connery who's never had hair, you talk about a mind-blowing experience. I never realized he wore a wig in all those Bond movies.
Billy Zane, dude.
Oh yeah, he doesn't even look the same.
He wore a wig in Titanic. He wore a wig in everything. It's crazy to go back and watch those movies and realize he was fucking bald as a porn star's pussy the whole time.
Wait, he was wearing a wig in The Phantom?
All of it. All of it.
Oh, I mean, I don't.
His entire career, he was wearing a rug.
Oh man,
it's a good rug.
It is. I never knew until right now, and I grew up with a mom who was a hairdresser, and she would point out everything to me, like, "Oh, that's a wig. That's this. That's that." Now I know about Billy Zane.
Yeah, Billy Zane, man. Jesus Christ.
I'm not saying he's the greatest actor or even that good of an actor, but I liked him.
I love The Phantom. I love that movie. I saw it in theaters. I thought it was great.
I have The Phantom on DVD. I have the fucking toy from the movie. They had a really shitty toy line.
Nice.
I got that. He came on. Was his horse's name Shadow or something, or Midnight?
Wow. What is this horse? Well, actually, they have several names, but yeah. Satan. Yeah, Satan is I believe his dog is the one. But yeah.
I just was a big Phantom fan.
No, Devil. Sorry, Satan. His dog's name is Devil. No, Jesus Christ.
That movie was a huge flop, but I loved it. I don't know.
His parrot's name is Lucifer. No, yeah, I agree. I dug that movie, and that was around the time Phantom 2040 was out too.
Yep,
which is a great fucking cartoon, and the game was great too.
Had it for Sega Genesis, one of the few Sega Genesis games I owned.
Good shit, man.
It was it was a really interesting time in the 90s when you had like the pulp or the obscure comic book characters that had more movies than some of the mainstream guys, because you had the Rocketeer, you had the Shadow, you had the Phantom, you had there was what was the one one other one I was going to bring up? We'll just take it out of the loop. But you had those ones come out at a time where there was no Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, all those characters. And Superman was on a hiatus that was going to go last 19 years that we didn't even know about back then. And you just had these other, I'm not going to call them B-list, but these like other types of heroes come out. And it was kind of exciting. Too bad all of them kind of just flopped.
Yeah, it sucks because some of them in retrospect are cult classics now. You know, people love the Rocketeer now. Although the Rocketeer didn't flop, I remember it doing okay. The Shadow didn't flop either. I think Phantom did. But Shadow and Rocketeer, I think Shadow was the best of the bunch. But Rocketeer and Phantom were fucking boss. I loved those movies.
Hell, you even had The Mask, which was a comic book movie technically.
You remember this? When Phantom came out, they did the Slurpee tie-in at 7-Eleven.
We don't have 7-Elevens around here.
Yeah, they had the Phantom flavor Slurpees. They were like purple grape or something, and you would get the glow-in-the-dark Phantom ring. It was like a plastic piece of shit. It was like, got it out of a Cracker Jack box, but they would give you the ring! By God. It was good stuff.
That I was so into that movie that I had my mom take me to the store and try to get me Phantom like comic books. I had never even seen them before. I was like, this was so cool. Because, you know, there wasn't, I mean, Indiana Jones was great, and I'm never going to shit on that because I love those ones. But you didn't have a lot of, like, swashbuckling stuff. And that was that kind of thing. And I think all young boys can identify with, like, that kind of, like, high adventure, even if it's dated in terms of, like, its setting. And it appeals to everybody on that, like, primal level. Like, that's so cool, you know? He rides on the side of an airplane and does this and fights the bad guy and gets the girl. Those kind of stories do work throughout, like, every era. And we're living in an era where they suppress it for ideological reasons.
And I've said this before. I think now is the time is ripe to bring back characters like the Shadow, Doc Savage, you know, more like masculine kind of unbending Avengers of Evil, because I think people are kind of thirsty for it after years of moral ambiguity and gray morality and all this, and all of it's so vacuous. You know, it's not even like the depths of gray morality. It's not even being handled as well as like a Frank Miller comic back in the 80s or something. It's so surface level and shallow. It basically amounts to this guy does a dickish thing every now and then. You know, I think people are kind of, they're desirous of movies where if you put the Shadow in a movie now, the Shadow with 2 fucking guns and he just murders criminals. Once you cross the line from good guy to criminal, and it's morally binary, there's no gray area in there. Once you cross that line, okay, you're dead. If you did that instead of like what they did to the Punisher in that Netflix show, I think it would be really interesting. I think people would really get behind it, especially if you set it in the 40s and had Nazis and stuff in it. I mean, who doesn't want to see the Shadow shoot Nazis? What the fuck? What's wrong with that? You know, I think all that would really, really work. Pulp heroes, I think, are ripe for revival. I've done several videos about it. I did 2 videos on the Shadow. I'm about to do one on Solomon Kane, who I think the same thing could be said for. And I'm going to do one on the Phantom and so forth, too. But yeah.
Well, I'll be watching those. I wish you wouldn't have brought up all this stuff about the Shadow, because now I want to go back. I love the ending of that movie.
It's great. That movie has held up surprisingly well. It has some tonal issues here and there, that's the thing about the 90s. They had all these great pulp heroes, but they were never quite committed to the premise. They always wanted to wink and nod at the camera because it was the 90s, right? Superhero movies were not taken that seriously. If they could just release a cut of that movie where he never winks and nods at the camera, where there's no, quip in there. Like there's this moment in the Shadow movie where he's like fighting this Mongol warrior guy and they go over the edge of a balcony and he lands on a gargoyle and smashes the dude. And he goes, "Next time you get to be on top." You know what I mean? Like it's really cringy. If they had a cut of the movie without stuff like that in it, it would be really, I think it would work pretty well even in the modern day.
How much of that stuff, though, do you think is a result from Batman 89? The only reason I bring that up is because a lot of those post-Batman 89 pulp hero movies have a similar feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always...
The Shadow was greenlit entirely because of Batman 89. So no doubt that was a factor.
And then you brought up the unnecessary humor. There's a couple I love. Like I said, I love Batman '89, but like, and I even like the line, but when he like goes to Vicky Vale about weighing 108 pounds and stuff, it works in there. But like, I feel like when I guess it's like movie by committee where they go like, this is why this works. Boom, 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 boom. You need to hit these beats, and that's when you get stuff like that in the shadow. And that I don't know. They need to go play it by an ear thing. We don't need to have like, well, this made the most money. Let's copy it.
You know, exactly. That's what I dig about. I think a shadow movie could work, especially because so much of it is wrapped up in Batman. I don't know if you're aware of the history with the Shadow and Batman. Batman swiped like his first 20 stories from the Shadow pulps, like word for word.
I'm well aware of what a piece of shit Bob Kane was.
It was no, dude, and he swiped art too. He traced art from the Shadow. It's crazy. He traced pulp art from the Shadow. But no, I think it would work really well because it's like Batman, only he kills people and he's got an utterly like binary moral code. I don't think Hollywood would make the movie today for that reason. Or if they did, they would try and change it. But if you could somehow get that on the screen, I think it would work in the same way that Death Wish worked in 1974, where it's kind of fulfilling a need the audience doesn't know it has. Or like the original Star Wars had in 1977, where, you know, 70s movies were so depressive that when Star Wars came along, it was such an emotional euphony. It was just, it was, as J.R.R. Tolkien would describe it, it was a eucatastrophe. It was the opposite of a catastrophe. It was just absolute comfort food. The people didn't even know they wanted it, and it just serviced a need. Those are like the big zeitgeist kind of movies. I feel like it would be kind of like that, like Death Wish or Dirty Harry or something like that.
I agree 100%. I have said numerous times, we need that, like I use the phrase, we need like a truly like, I use this for other stuff, like a masculine hero needs to come back in this weird world of like these kind of, I don't want to say, God, I keep saying the phrase soy boy, and I hate that. I don't think it's that funny. People, I'm like, whatever, but we need like a Schwarzenegger type of like, just like give us like that. And I think when you're talking about the Shadow and that kind of thing, we need that too. Just a strong, the guy believes what he believes in. Let's not try to muddy it up or make it whatever.
It doesn't have to be machismo or anti-female. It just has to be, you just have to be true to the characters and not be afraid to be violent, not be afraid to be all of these things because of political correctness. Just make the movie you want to make. And unfortunately, that's not how Hollywood movies are made anymore. They're just so focus tested and by committee. And that's where a lot of the social justice stuff comes in, because they open the door for all that. They have to service absolutely everyone now, even if it's not even the audience that's going to go see the film.
God, in many ways, it makes me want to not support anything, but in many ways, it makes me want to just go and like make my own thing and try to go out there and change it myself. That's what a lot of the stuff on the channel is for us. I'm not saying we're going to go out there and make, the Shadow movie or stuff like that, but we want to at least like wake people up to these things and let them know like, hey, there's a problem and it affects people. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what, RazörFist, let's close this out because it's almost 2:00 here. So
yeah, we went on for almost 3 hours. Jesus Christ.
It did not feel like it. I was on like I told you, I was on another stream earlier, and that was fun. But in the back of my mind, I was counting down for this one because like I said, we planned this shit 12 days ago, and it lived up to the expectations in my mind. I was enjoying it. I enjoyed the pre-show part. I enjoyed the entire show part. I'd love to have you back on in the future.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come on. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your guys' show.
Well, I appreciate it. And the fans have spoken. They would really like you to come on the High Council one of these weeks because we're going to do like a 3-man booth and then have like a guest on each week. And people are saying, get RazörFist to be on that. And if you're available, we'll definitely keep in contact with you because I feel like you have a really good take on everything. But in entertainment, it would really make our show a lot better. So thank you for being on. Can I ask a favor?
What's up?
Can you close us out with your God fucking speed?
Happily. All right, folks. For the world-class bullshitters, I am RazörFist. God fucking speed.
Yeah, that was awesome.